The Colts practice this evening. That is still a go, despite the fact that it is the polar vortex and it's misty outside. All of a sudden, we moved from literally West Texas to Seattle in the span of a day.
I wish we moved to Seattle in the span of a day. Let me tell you, Jake.
One of your favorite places, right?
Oh, yeah.
The weather is not necessarily great outside, but it actually feels kind of good after everything that obviously it's been the last few days. But practice is still scheduled for this evening, at least as of 15 minutes ago, like all plans are go, for them to be outside, not moving inside, etc. I know that fans have been looking forward to that. J&B will be out there broadcasting. But before we get into that and we discuss everything going on with the Colts camp, as a matter of fact, Bob Kravitz is going to join us today on the program. Pretty big news in the world of Indianapolis and motorsport in general. And I certainly understand and respect and appreciate that there are probably people that are saying to themselves, Jake, it's July. It's late July, like we're about to turn to August. The Colts have a night practice, and their schedule is going to get underway before we know it here. And the Fever had a big night last night, and a player got booed, and that is of note. And you still have the quarterback controversy, and one of the biggest stars in American sports was performing last night, and Eddie's mom went to go see, and then there were cramps by the athlete, and that shut that down. And there's a lot going on, and you're going to lead with, yes, I am. While the numbers are not concrete to my understanding, and I also want to make clear, as I do sometimes when it comes to talking about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the disclaimer that I am not, none of what I'm about to say is in any way, shape, or form something that like I was directly told, because I work there in a very peripheral sense. And I only say this because just like, for example, when you had the incident with Team Penske and qualifying for the Indy 500, I tried to explain it for those that were not huge fans or didn't understand it. And this has major implication from even a business standpoint within the city of Indianapolis. So before I go into it, I will again explain, because I realize there are probably people that are like, wait a minute, this dude works there. I am a seasonal contracted, basically subcontracted employee of the Penske Entertainment Group. The work that I do and that all of us on the radio network do, we are seasonal employees, meaning that we work there not year-round, but we get a 1099 or whatever it's called, and we work individually under contract for each race broadcast on the radio side. Excuse me for yawning. So, The radio division under which I work, the IndyCar Radio Network or Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network, is part of IMS Productions, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Productions. And if you were to go way back, and I won't bore everybody with the nuance of this, but I again believe in precedent and background, and I think it makes things relatable for people. In 1996, when Tony George, whose grandfather, Tony Holman, had purchased the Speedway in the 40s and was the ownership family of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. When Tony George, in 1996, decided to start his own racing league, the Indy Racing League, using the Indianapolis 500 as the anchor event to entice people to run his racing series. In addition to that, Tony George started a television station and a network of programs across the street from the Speedway known as WNDY TV 23. And his vision, which was a great one, was to get a television station that was just all local all the time. That would be the flagship station for the Bob Knight Show and for high school sports and the Hoosier Lottery and all kinds of different things. So with that idea, they, of course, decided we need to be one-stop shopping and run our own, basically, local media network. So the Indianapolis Motor Speedway purchased what was called Telex which was the in-house video department of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that you would see for years if you went out to the race, or you'd watch the late local news and they would show the cars going around the track. That was done by Telex. So the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Productions acquired both Telex and then expanded beyond that. And IMS Productions is the production house that puts together everything that you see when you hear my voice on the radio during the race, or Mark Janes or Nick Yeoman or Michael Young or Kristen Neri or whoever. When you listen to the Indianapolis 500 broadcast, that is put together by the parent company, IMS Productions. And IMS Productions also owns a number of television editing and television production equipment that not only produces and puts together and assembles much of what you see on an IndyCar broadcast, but also professional bull riding, and they have satellite trucks, even though now most people use fiber. They facilitate for other sports properties. A lot of times, if, say, the Boston Celtics are coming to play the Pacers, it's IMS Productions that assists in the production for the Boston Celtics side of things for their stuff to go back to Boston. I say all that not to bore everybody. I realize that that's a lot, but the Penske Entertainment Group that Roger Penske purchased with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway from the Holman George family, when he made that purchase, he purchased three things. He purchased the racetrack of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he purchased the IndyCar Series, and he purchased IMS Productions. Those three companies that are all one. So all of those companies, including the one in which I'm a subcontracted employee, became known as Penske Entertainment Group. At that time, it is not known by anybody factually how much Roger Penske spent to acquire those three things, but the estimated number that has been widely accepted is around $350 million. Today, it was announced that the Fox Television Corporation has purchased 1/3 stake in all three of those companies. So the Penske Entertainment Group. So basically, if the Penske Entertainment Group is the United States government, then you have three branches: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch. In this case, Penske Entertainment Group is the government. You have three branches: the track, the series, and the production. And Fox paid roughly, again, no one knows the exact number, but is estimated or reported to be between $125 million and $135 million to say that they are a 1/3 owner, that they own 1/3 of that corporation. They own, essentially, for lack of a better phrase, 33% of Penske Entertainment. That means that they have an incredible influence over the IndyCar Series, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and IMS Productions. I don't know, and I'm not just saying this because that means that now there's, a potential additional stamp that goes on the check. I mean, I think it's important to be transparent about that disclaimer of my involvement. I don't know how that impacts or affects any of what we have seen from the IndyCar Series other than this. I can only assume, because what we know about IndyCar is this, and what we know about the Indianapolis 500 is this. And the reason why this is important to even the non-race fan in Indianapolis is because the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a major revenue generator for the city of Indianapolis in terms of its commerce, in terms of its branding, in terms of its visitation, in terms of its hospitality taxes. All of that benefits from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and hosting the largest single-day spectator sport in the world. And so you want the integrity of that. You want the investment of that to continue forward. And I think what happens with any company, you hear me talking about it with Love Heating and Air. They've been around for over 100 years. And what do I say? A lot of businesses, by the time you get into the second or third generation, you start dealing with a generation that doesn't have as much interest in staying involved with the family business as the initial starter did. I don't know whether or not the children of Roger Penske are not as interested as Roger Penske. I have no idea. That would be totally unfair and disingenuous of me to say. But Roger Penske is a businessman. And if they felt that it was in their best interest to bolster or stabilize or strengthen the future of the business by getting other people involved, the Pacers did it. They sold a percentage of their ownership, did Herb Simon, within the last 2 years. So The bottom line is this. The one thing about IndyCar, which is a niche sport, and anymore I feel like anything outside of the NFL feels like a niche sport, but IndyCar is absolutely a niche sport at best. And when you are a niche sport, you become increasingly by year concerned or interested in what is going to happen with your television partner if you are not getting the ratings that you were once getting. And ratings are a little bit harder to tabulate now as well because more people are watching on streaming, they're watching on demand, those sorts of things. But if your television ratings are not such that you are able to monetize that and become lucrative, then you start to ask, okay, what happens if this television deal goes away? TV drives everything. We know that. Look at the NFL. Why do you think the NBA goes under a new collective bargaining agreement, gets a new salary cap? It's because the TV money's coming in and you got to make sure, and that changes the dynamic of what everything's worth. And so with this deal, because it is a television partner, the one that currently airs the IndyCar series, the good news here is this is a series, because it's niche, that needs as much promotion as it can possibly get, that needs as much financial backing from a television partner as it can possibly get. And now it has it in the greatest form because the television partner is the one now that has a financial immediate interest in growing the product and becoming the promoter. What that means for the schedule, what that means for the number of races or number of ovals or the strategies of the races themselves, I don't know. We will find that out. But the other thing that I think is interesting is this now with the Brickyard 400, for example, and I'll have to look up. I was a little tied up this morning, so I didn't get a chance to look this up on my way in, but TNT aired the NASCAR race this year at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. NASCAR has a television deal where some of its races, part of its schedule is on Fox, part of its schedule is on TNT. Obviously, I would assume that at some point, the Brickyard 400 goes back to being a Fox property, notably because Fox now is a one-third owner of that venue. And I can't imagine that Fox is going to say, we own this racetrack, but let's make sure that we're making it as big and bad as possible for TNT to make money off of. So it is we won't know for some time what this all means, but it is interesting because I have heard people say, and people have asked me on the regular, hey, what do you think will happen to the Speedway if Roger Penske's not around or if Roger Penske's not involved? And now we know that there is at least, I'm not saying that it eventually all goes over there, but we now know that there is yet another invested partner to making sure that the health of the IndyCar Series and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is not only where it needs to be now, but where it needs to be going forward. And it will be some time before we know exactly where all that goes and what all that means. It's an interesting day to have in studio in 30 minutes from now a guy that I think is as synonymous with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as anyone who has never had an ownership group in it, but he knows a little about ownership in the business of sport, and that's Tony Stewart. And Tony Stewart's going to be here in about 30 minutes. And if you want to know the business savvy of Tony Stewart, if you want to know Tony Stewart is a polarizing dude. I don't think Tony Stewart would be the first to tell you that. But I think this is brilliant. The U.S. Nationals that is the creme de la creme event for NHRA racing. And the NHRA, drag racing is a big deal. They get good television numbers. They have good partners, and they have big stars like Tony Stewart, who is now second in the top fuel points. But Tony Stewart is a businessman and a pretty smart dude. And so they reached out and said, hey, Tony's going to come around Indianapolis on the 31st. Do you want him to come in studio? And I said, of course. And then I said, I got to ask, though. The U.S. Nationals is not, because I thought, are the Nationals early this year? And I looked it up, in the U.S. Nationals, as they always are, beginning of September. It runs actually August 27th through September 1st. And the answer was, no, Tony wants to make sure that he is talking about this and promoting it well in advance so that people can plan their trip to come out and buy tickets ahead of time and et cetera. And I thought, now, see, that's brilliant, because so often you hear people that will reach out and want to promote and sell tickets for something, and then they're like, oh, by the way, it's tomorrow. Well, I mean, Eddie, you probably already have your weekend planned, correct?
No.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do. Got Fever Game Friday night, hosting Indiana Sports Talk on Saturday night. It'll be the final show before Bob Lovell's return next weekend.
Yeah, so, I just think that's really smart. It is really savvy on behalf of Tony Stewart. But I'll be interested also to see his thoughts, his reaction to this news today from a business aspect in motorsports. Fever last night, get a win, and there were boo birds out. Is that right, Eddie?
Yeah. I mean, did you expect that? I mean, it's sports. You would anticipate a player being booed when they leave in the way in which DeWanna Bonner did. It just felt like she quit on the Fever.
I think that's it. I think it's the fact that DeWanna Bonner, I think it was pretty clear that it just wasn't going to work out with DeWanna Bonner from the times. It was just a bad fit. Stephanie White said it's a bad fit, right?
Yep.
So, and yes, she had played with Stephanie White, and it was thought that she was going to be, a big acquisition. But from the time that she was signed, it did just, something was a little bit off, right? So, yes, even if it had been a mutual parting, the fact that the way and the fashion in the middle of the year that she left certainly looked like she walked in and said, you know what, I kind of want out of here. So I understand the vitriol that came last night from fans booing her, as opposed to, there are some players that get like the video tribute, even when they leave as a free agent. If it's a mutual breakup, there's never a mutual breakup, but if there's the mutual breakup, right? I mean, let's be real. Jerry Seinfeld and his girlfriend, was it Jeannie Garofalo that played his girlfriend? They were the last mutual breakup in the history of mutual breakups, right? It's one. There's one that's ever happened. There's always one side or the other that precipitates it. But nonetheless, so in this one, that's the perception. It does make me wonder, Eddie, because he was a great player for a long time, what will the reaction be when Miles Turner comes back?
Yeah,
because he was a free agent.
Good one.
And if there are fans, it would be really poor business and really dumb of me to use my radio show to tell fans how to behave. People don't want to hear that. They don't. And it's not my place to tell people what to do when they spend money for a ticket. Okay? But with that said, if you are somebody who has been or disenfranchised or upset or expressed any sort of concern, whatever you want to call it, over the Pacers not anteing up enough money to retain Miles Turner, or not coming with a bigger offer from the get-go, or not being willing to go into the tax, none of which I think is true. But if that's your vantage point, understandable, but at the same time, then you can't boo the guy, right? You can't, on one hand, say the Pacers are at fault for the departure of Miles Turner because they slighted him, and then on the other hand, be mad at Miles Turner for leaving.
Well, Jake, that would require the fans to be, logical. If you're a fan, come on now. You're not thinking logically here.
I have, with my fandom, I've told you before, there are two teams that I still have like a like that fandom about. Because when you do what we do, I'll give you a good example. Maybe it's a bad example. So I mentioned the other day, and I don't pretend that people need and certainly even care about hearing about things in my personal life. But because I mentioned it on the air, I guess I'll give the follow-up, that my dad is currently in the hospital. He's 84 years old. He is cognitively in very good shape, but he had a stroke, and that there's a lot that goes into that in terms of the recovery, the process, the ups and downs. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And for him, I know it's a very difficult thing from a pride standpoint as much as anything. So the other day I'm in his room, actually this morning I was there, and the nurse came in and just had to tend to, the things that take place. And I don't mean drawing your blood, but just getting you, your morning, getting you cleaned, getting you ready in the morning. And my dad was like, well, Jake, you have to set your dignity and your modesty aside. And I said, Dad, these people do this every single day. They do it every single day. They change people. They clean people. They do that. These saints at hospitals do this every single day. So that don't even worry about what they're thinking about this. And when you do what we do for a living, and yes, I'm not comparing my job to being a medical provider, but for any of us, your professionalism within your craft gets to a point where you see everything antiseptically. You see everything almost like medically speaking in terms of the way you break things down at your job differently than other people would see it. And when you do what we do for a living, or certainly, John would be the first to tell you this, when you get the credential for games and when your job is to objectively opine about games, you just sterilize it to a point where your fandom kind of goes away in terms of the highs and the lows that go with watching a game and the excitement level and drinking beers with your buddies and eating corn dogs while you're watching the game. I mean, all those things, because for the most part, you're in a press box and you're just looking at it from almost a scientific standpoint of what's happening, action and reaction over the course of a game. And that has become that way for me, except for the fandom in me still exists with this Pacers run that just happened. I was open about that. And then for Clemson football, because that's the team that I intentionally picked 30 years ago as my outlet so that it didn't compromise like professionalism. And with Clemson, for example, Eddie, I'm totally irrational. I watched the game.
I was looking for.
What's that?
Irrational. That's the word I was looking for.
Ohio State playoff game a couple of years ago. Clemson's down. They're down in the first half. And Shannon got up and moved on the couch. They turned the ball over, and I said, that's it. I got to go. I can't watch it here. What do you mean? I can't watch it here. It's bad luck. I got to go home. Every time I watch it here, they lose. She's like, you're kidding, right? I'm not kidding at all. And she made a video of me pacing back and forth, looking irrational. And then I left, and I went home and watched, and they came back and won.
Now, CJ, you can cite that this upcoming season if something like that happens and she calls you crazy. Because if I'm not mistaken, something like that happened with the Pacers this year in the playoff run with her, right?
Yes. During the playoff run, she went to the tunnel. It's like, I'm not watching it. She went to the tunnel during one of their comebacks.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
So they now have a permanent place for her right next to that little riding bike.
The Shannon P. Walsh standing zone.
What's that?
The Shannon P. Walsh standing zone.
That's exactly right. Tony Stewart in studio, 22 from now. Bob Kravitz as well. Colts night practice tonight, a Thursday edition, Query and Company. Eddie, did you say that we have added a guest in the 2 o'clock hour on this already action-packed, and I'm happy for that, day?
Yes, Jake. Former Indianapolis Colts beat writer with the Indy Star, Zach Kiefer, will join the program at 2 o'clock. He had a pretty interesting piece on Anthony Richardson, and a large part of it, Jake, I found interesting is, and Zach will talk more about it, but just what Richardson focused on this offseason with improving his throwing mechanics, because it felt like when he went back and watched his tape from last season with his throwing coach, they felt like there was a specific thing within his mechanics that resulted in so many missed throws high last year, and that's why you see some of the videos now more and more of Anthony Richardson leading up to the start of these practices doing these like simulated walkthroughs of what they're going to be working on.
You know, the thing that, and I'm going to see if I still have it here, when he first started out, Anthony Richardson, in the NFL, Sean King, not the polarizing writer, but the former NFL quarterback who still serves as an analyst and was with Tampa, played at Tulane. He said that when it comes to, and this was, I'm going back to in 2023, said that when Anthony Richardson and would throw, that he was dropping his elbow too low. And when he dropped his elbow too low, then on his rotation, you know, his arm is not raised up high enough. And that's why, and so because he's letting go from a lower point, he's compensating that at the last minute by raising it over. That was the reason for overthrows a lot of times, because his rotation just wasn't where it needed to be, and that's why it was so inconsistent. You know, it's probably not unlike any other sport where it's just a matter of repetition and muscle memory. Muscle memory is such an important part of it. And I think it's easy for us to sit here and say, like, it's easy for me to sit here and say, how does Anthony Richardson not know how to throw the football? How do you get to this point as an NFL player and you've got to be taught to throw the football? Let me get this straight. You're telling me that Harvard selected you to run their biochemistry department, and you're still trying to memorize the periodic table? It's easy to say that. But I think what we are failing to again register is the fact that Anthony Richardson is such an athletic freak. And I mean that in a good way, not a bad way. He is so athletically, naturally gifted that the little things that there's two kinds of quarterbacks. There's a quarterback there's two kinds of diamonds, right? You got a diamond that grows naturally through process through pressure, and then you got diamonds that are made in a lab. And the one that forms naturally from coal through pressure goes through all of the proper steps that it has to go through to form into a diamond. The other one is just made in a lab and pops out and it looks just like the regular diamond, but it has no concept of the pressure that the first one went through. They look the same, but one of them didn't go through the same process. And Anthony Richardson, to some extent, is almost like a lab-grown diamond. He just naturally, not naturally, because lab-grown, but he is so gifted that I don't know that he is aware of the steps that most quarterbacks have to go through. And so he never had to learn those because he was bigger than everybody on the field. He was faster than everybody on the field. And when you are that big and that fast and you can carry the football and run the football and do other such things like that, you don't have to move the football by being a totally precise on-the-ball thrower. And now he's having to learn that because in the NFL, the speed, the gaps, the the collapse time of everybody else has caught up to what normally separated him naturally. And that's the challenge that he has. Now, that's why the Colts have been so patient on it, because they're like, man, if he can figure that out, look out. Because the tuck and run he's got figured out. The long ball off the back foot he's got figured out. But you've got to be able to do all those other little things. And Zach Kiefer has the column about it. There is a lot of speculation, Eddie, about where this has come from in the offseason. Because didn't everybody and their brother just naturally assume that Anthony Richardson was working out with the same coach that had worked with Josh Allen?
Mm-hmm. Chris Hess, I believe, is the guy's name.
That was always the assumption. And I think now, and Kiefer will be able to, when we talk to him at 2 o'clock, better get into this. But I think what we're going to learn is that he has not worked with him. But it does appear he's been better in this camp. It does appear. But I keep going back to, you have to, before you make that decision, make sure that you are getting that this is the real Anthony Richardson. You know, kind of like let me tell you what happened to me. When I was in high school once, did you ever have the police have to call your parents?
No.
So
I was responsible, Jake.
I had one buddy when I was growing up. He's a great dude. He's a great dude. It's like a brother to me. My parents love him. But he was a troublemaker. He was an instigator. Not by his own, but he and I together were dynamite in a match. It's just a bad deal every time we were together. Like we just came up with mischief. Nothing major, but just dumb stuff. So one night, he's over at my house. We're getting ready to go out. It's the summer before I think my junior or senior year of high school was beginning. So right when we had our driver's license. I can't remember which year it was.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad is saying to him, now, Chris, and I'm not saying any last names here. Now, Chris, you know you and Jake are like dynamite in a match. And I don't know if I can trust you. You're like Eddie Haskell. You know, my dad's a pretty keen guy, right?
Well, Jake, I mean, you're his son, so apple doesn't fall far from the tree there.
Thank you. So
You're
Chris
welcome.
says, no, Mr. Query. I've turned over a new leaf. I'm the new Chris. My dad says, okay. We go out that night, and that is the one night of my life where my social evening ended with the men in blue and the women in blue and the finest of Indianapolis calling my parents saying, we have your son. You need to come get him. To this day, okay, we're 52 years old. Chris now has one of the most respectable jobs and is an influencer of young people that you could have. And to this day, when my dad sees him, he's like, oh, look, it's the new Chris. Turned over the new leaf, huh? Never lets him live it down. But you can say that you're new. You can say that you're changed. But it doesn't mean that you are. That's the bottom line, right? That's the bottom line. Tony Stewart going to join us in studio. Going to do so shortly. We will find out not only what he's going to do to try to get himself that NHRA championship, about the U.S. Nationals coming up, but also his thoughts on this news with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar Series as well. Lot to get to. Bob Kravitz, 1 o'clock hour. Zach Kiefer, 2 o'clock hour. Query and Company here on The Fan. 19 minutes before the 1 o'clock hour. Jake Query along with Eddie Garrison. Tony Stewart going to be joining us here shortly. On his way in, U.S. Nationals coming up August 27th out at, and you know what? I got to ask Stewart because I always get confused by this. I always just say IRP, but I know it's like I've got to get the correct term because they've changed sponsors a few times. They've always been good to me. I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. You know what I mean? At one time, it was Lucas Oil Raceway. I'm assuming that is still the case. Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park, I believe, is the correct title for that, for the U.S. Nationals. But Stewart actually is going to be doing a Dodge paint scheme that the fans voted on, which is pretty cool for that. Eddie, your mom went last night to see Shohei Ohtani, and then Shohei Ohtani said no mas. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, he had cramps last night. I'm like, really? We're cramping up? What are we doing, Shohei? Not drinking enough water, not getting enough Pedialyte? What's the deal here? I went to that game on, was it Tuesday night? I was like, oh, cool. I get to see Shohei Ohtani. Maybe he'll do something. Strikeout.
Now, where were the cramps?
Nobody knows. Nobody really knows.
When's the last time you got – you know, he should have gotten – you know what he should have done?
What's that?
This is I don't know what's going on with the Dodgers training staff. But how did they not know that you just get a couple of yellow mustard packets and suck on those bad boys, cramp gone?
Oh, gross.
I'm telling – no, listen, say it all you want.
Mustard is disgusting.
I'm not saying it's great, but I'm saying if you take 2 mustard packets, bada boom, bada bing, no more cramps. Guarantee
Pickle
it.
juice.
Huh?
Pickle juice.
Same thing. What do you think's in mustard?
I would much rather have pickle juice.
You can drink it straight, right?
Yeah.
But that's harder to carry. Like, you can't pickle juice. Because you got to have the pickles in the jar. So it's a lot harder in your pocket if you're a baseball player to carry out a jar of pickles in the pocket. But you get 2 of those little mustard packets, and if you're Phil Necro, you mix in an emery board, you're good to go, right?
Gross.
So, good to go. And that would have taken care of the cramping problem. But the Reds came back and got a win last night, right?
They did. Nice win last night from the Reds. Spencer Steer had a go-ahead triple. So, yeah, good win. They still are the only team in Major League Baseball that has not been swept this year.
They still have not, right?
No, 35 or 36 series this year. No sweeping.
The Colts practicing tonight under the lights, Grand Park, Westfield. And this is a true night practice. This is not a late afternoon practice that's going to go into dark. It's a true night practice. Eddie, to me, and I think that's still on schedule. I understand that people are like, hey, is it because do we know the forecast? Is it supposed to rain later tonight?
Let me check.
Because I don't know if they would move the practice. Hey, Jake, did you just say pickles in your pockets? The jar. Get your mind out of the gutter, folks. Come on now.
Westfield looks good. Just going to be a cloud. Wow. It is only 68 in Westfield.
I told you.
Now.
I'm wearing the long sleeve shirt today.
70 degrees.
Polar vortex. Yes.
70 degrees.
Yes. 45-degree difference from 115 yesterday, 70 today. Right?
By the way, Jake, got a couple compliments via YouTube. You can also watch us on Facebook and on X at 1075 The Fan about your little long sleeve jacket you got there, the Adidas Oasis thing.
Are people being sarcastic?
No.
Really?
Yes, really. People like the jacket.
Listen.
What's on the back of that bad boy?
That's the only problem. And we'll get into Colts camp and what I'm looking for tonight in just a second here. So, as I mentioned, when we went to the concert, and I know people are tired of hearing about the concert. I get it. It was like a life-changing event for me. But when we went to the concert, I cannot emphasize how big Oasis as a band is in England. I mean, Taylor Swift times 3. I'm not kidding you, okay? So they have a partnership with Adidas, and they set up an Adidas Oasis store in Manchester, a pop-up store. It was 3 stores. There were 7 of them. Just like if you go to like Nike Town in Chicago. So I went there and I bought this. This is an Adidas long sleeve, and my cousin got me one as well. So I have a zip up and then this one. And I thought it was super cool. It just has the Adidas logo. It's navy blue, and it just says Oasis. The back, I think, is awesome. The only problem is it's dated. So here's my question. Eddie, I'm going to turn around. I want you to read the back, and then I want you to tell me what the shelf life is of the garment that I'm wearing.
Okay.
And here's the thing. And I realize that we're on radio, not on YouTube, or not on television other than the YouTube. But people can see me right now. Like, if you don't mind me saying so, this looks good, right? I mean, this looks good. And I model it well. I mean, this is 52 going on 27 here, okay? But let me turn around and you read the back, okay? And then tell me the shelf life of because I love this. I love it. But tell me if it has a shelf life.
Okay, on the back it says the band with the 3 stripes live 25.
Is that everything it says?
Yeah.
Okay. So the live 25 means the live show in 2025.
Right.
So do I only have like 4 more months I can wear this?
I mean, you spent money on it, Jake. You can wear it wherever the hell you want.
But would it look weird if you see somebody walking around in a shirt like, toured? And here's the other thing. If something has the year on it, what is the number of years that you have to wait before then you can break it back out and it's super cool because it's retro as opposed to that dude's just wearing a 2-year-old shirt?
Well, here's the thing, Jake. I think it's different because it's an overseas commitment. You flew across the country to go watch them perform, and maybe you wear it out next year in 2026, and somebody stopped you was like, "Oh, you went and saw Oasis in 2025 in Manchester? How was it?
Okay.
Would you recommend going?"
By the way, also Eddie, I will let you, and you got to go to the bottom. There's a whole. Don't read the whole text right here, but I just got a text from Shannon, and I would like for you to tell me whether or not you find this to be acceptable for radio broadcast. Okay, as we're talking about this.
Nice to know she's listening today. She found out what you do for a living.
That's right. Shannon found out yes or no on that text. We probably should not read that,
no.
Right? Huh?
That would be a no.
Okay, fair enough. Colts camp tonight under the lights at Grand Park in Westfield. Eddie, you will be looking for what for this in terms of aside from the quarterback play?
I still want to see what that starting outside corner job does now for Justin Wally, considering the fact and still what the status is moving forward of Juju Brents. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Jalen Jones is going to be sidelined for a couple of weeks just with that hamstring injury, given the nature of which he exited practice earlier in the week. How does Wally perform now that it may seem like he is the front runner and his the guy he was competing with largely is now going to be sidelined? Like, how does that affect? Does that change the way he practices at all? How does obviously the 2 quarterbacks, how are they performing? Does Anthony Richardson continue to ascend like the way he has over the last week?
Or does Daniel Jones take a step? Because we're kind of I don't think Daniel Jones has done anything to hurt himself, but he hasn't done anything to stand out either, right? He's just, and maybe that's who he is, and maybe that's perfectly sufficient. When New York eventually punted on, pardon the pun, Daniel Jones, maybe that's because they were waiting patiently to see that step that made him a franchise quarterback and just didn't see it. And maybe he's a perfectly sufficient quarterback, but not we drafted him in the top 5. The problem for the Colts is they have 2 guys on their roster right now that mirror one another in terms of they now have not 1 but 2 projects. Yeah. And one of them's going to have to hit, right?
Do we get does one of the pass rushers have a nice day today? Does Kwity Paye have a nice day? Does Latu finally have a day where it's like, oh, look, that's why they drafted him,
Boy, you're not
the first defensive player in the draft.
Latu's another one that, Latu was the first defender drafted in his class, right?
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, with Latu, you have the highest of expectations. And
you Chris Ballard called him the best edge rusher in the draft.
Do you remember that? He laughed, right?
Yeah. And he had a swear word in there, too.
Did he really?
He did.
Chris likes to swear.
Oh, he does. Potty mouth.
Kind of like the Chris that turned over a new leaf and then got me arrested.
You know who else has a potty mouth? Pat Knight.
You can blame that on his dad, Eddie. That much we know, right?
That's great.
That much we know. I agree with you that the quarterback competition to me has overshadowed a couple of other areas. And I thought it was interesting yesterday when we mentioned this with Joel A. Erickson. And that is, what about the linebacker spot?
Yeah.
The linebacker spot, Zaire Franklin is a guy that has put up big numbers, but you also wonder how much of that is system-oriented towards kind of funneling things towards him. And under a new defense, is he the same? And I think he's a good player, don't get me wrong. But is he the same player under Lou Anarumo's defense that he was previously?
Yeah.
And yet, and who are the others that are going to be around him? Are there young players in that situation that step in, right? Hey, Jake, lots of perfectly sufficient quarterbacks have won Super Bowls. That's true. And give me the definition or the poster child of he's just a sufficient quarterback that won a Super Bowl.
I would say the last one that we've had was certainly Peyton Manning.
The second go-round.
Yeah, with Denver.
That's fair.
Outside of that, you've had a quarterback that's had a MVP-type year, like Stafford.
I mean,
but he was absolutely fantastic that year.
Peyton in Denver is a good call. I think you could make the case for Eli Manning, right?
Yes.
Although he got super hot in the playoffs. Flacco is absolutely the poster child of that. But what do they all have in common? That Manning team in Denver? The
historical defenses?
Correct. And I don't know that the Colts have that. Is there an area on this roster where the Colts are elite across the board?
Well, the secondary could be, depending on
correct
with the investments.
But I don't know that. But I think if you look even in today's NFL and in that defense where you have elite level defensive backfield play, you've got to have strength in the middle. And we just don't know yet whether or not that linebacking core. And then they're certainly waiting. It looks like defensively they could be for sure a major upgrade, right?
Depends on, I mean, it's really going to rely on, Jake, can they disrupt the timing and get to the quarterback? That's what it's going to come down to, because we know Lou Anarumo is going to be aggressive and blitzing. Can they just get home is going to be the biggest problem or the biggest factor, because if you can't speed up that internal clock of an opposing quarterback and just let him sit back there, then I don't care who you are, you can pick apart any defense.
What key losses do you think they had? Is there anybody that we're going to say midway through the year, like, man, that was big?
Dio Adengbo, just because of his flexibility and his availability.
Yeah, that's fair. Because what's the best ability, Eddie?
Availability.
That is correct. The best ability is, in fact, availability. Tony Stewart is available, entering the building, so we're going to go down and grab him and bring him up. How's that? Bob Kravitz, 1 o'clock hour. Zach Kiefer coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. We've got a little live golf to discuss, and we have tickets to give away. Is that right, Eddie?
Yes, we do, Jake. We've got some Dropkick Murphys and Bad Religion tickets to give away. That is Tuesday, the Everwise Amphitheater at the White River State Park.
All right, we'll do that over the course of the day today as well. But I do promise, because I mentioned it earlier, and now officially Tony Stewart going to join us other side. That, as a matter of fact, he is quickly emerging his way up to the top for top fuel dragsters in the NHRA, just 48 points out of the championship that he is chasing, which would be, because Tony Stewart, you've won a championship in every single thing you've ever strapped into, right?
We've been fortunate enough to win a lot. I don't know about everything, but we've given it a shot.
It's good to see you, and I wanted to get to this, and I just think this is brilliant. And I don't say that a lot about people from Columbus, but, I will here, right?
And rightfully so.
So the U.S. Nationals, which for those that have never been, I think it just is an absolute bucket list item in Indy, especially, when under the lights, it's awesome. It touches every sense, and I love everything about it. And when I knew that you were coming in town to talk about it, I thought, well, wait a minute. The U.S. Nationals is always like around Labor Day. This year, August 27th until September 1st. And I love the fact that you had the wherewithal to say, yeah, but we got to let people know about it well in advance so people can plan for it, which is so much smarter than just like, hey, it's going to be tomorrow, and people already have their weekend planned, right? So
that's what I've been telling Josh over here. That's why we're here today. So
it's
you're spot on.
I mean, no, honestly, because and I get that from, and this is what I like about it. I think it shows that Tony Stewart is a racer, but yet you still have the mindset of Tony Stewart, the kid, is a race fan, right? I mean,
and we're a promoter too.
Right?
I mean, I have a dirt track, so I mean, we think about that from our standpoint of promoting our races as well. So it's nice to come in early and talk about it, especially knowing it's a holiday weekend. So everybody's making plans as kind of the last hurrah before summer's over, but it is, going to Indy for U.S. Nationals. I mean, that's the Daytona 500, it's the Super Bowl, it's the Indy 500 for drag racing. So it's our biggest race of the year, and for me, it's a home race, obviously.
Right.
So it means that much more to me. But having the opportunity to start on Friday night with a night qualifying run, there's nothing better than watching nitro cars, the funny cars, and the top fuel cars run at night and seeing the flames out of the pipes.
The dark is unbelievable.
It is insane. So I always like the night qualifying sessions, and then we got 2 more days of qualifying after that. So it's definitely an awesome weekend, and it's just that marquee event that you circle it on your calendar every year, not because it's a home event, but because it's the biggest race for NHRA during the season, and that's the one you want to win.
What fascinates me is this. On the air, so Tony Stewart, you're in a situation where, and I remember the last time we talked, I think even, when you first got into these cars, I don't know that anybody, including maybe even you, knew how long you would be running in the top fuel in NHRA. And yet here you are, and in this year, you've already got 2 wins on the year. You've advanced past round 1 in, I think, 10 of your 11 weekends. So you know what you're doing, right? But that's not to say that you always knew what you were doing. So how much for this were you enticed by the learning of it and the having to chase something that was outside your comfort zone, which I'm assuming it's been a long time since you were out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, you're spot on. It was exactly that way. I think kind of one of the variables that really helped draw me into it was my wife, Leah. And, during COVID's when we met, I started going to her races when NHRA was able to start racing again. She had went to my sprint car races before that. And so she asked a lot of questions about the dirt track side. And obviously, when I started going to the races with her, I had lots of questions. And every week I had more and more. And it led to going down to Frank Hawley's driving school in Florida. And then next thing you know, I'm testing her car, which was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my entire career, was go from a school car that runs 220 miles an hour to getting in a 330 mile an hour car. I was definitely not ready for that and not prepared for it. But, I ran a year in the top alcohol dragster category with the McPhillips family, and they raced out of Indianapolis here. And that got me a lot more used to what I was doing. And I still had the opportunity to test once in a while in Leah's car when they needed me. And that got me ready when Leah decided she was ready to start a family. When she got pregnant, then I was the guy that stepped in, and I'm just the replacement driver. So I'm this guy with NASCAR and IndyCar credentials, but I'm the replacement driver.
But
so
you guys
I'm good
have
with
been
that.
parents now for 8 months, right?
Yeah, it seems like 8 years.
Right.
Honestly.
Well, I remember the last time we talked to you, I think sleeping at night was like one of your concerns, right?
And it's continued to be a concern. It's still a concern. I like talking to people that sleep through the night and go, tell me what it's like, because I can't even remember what it's like to sleep through the night.
Well, listen, I'm old now, so I hardly do, right? But with that said, because that was kind of the game plan, right? Of we'll wait and see once the family starts how long I will be in this. Do you have a better feel or read now on what that outlook is?
I'm in the same mode that Leah's fans are. Leah's fans are asking, when is she getting back in the car? And I'm sitting on the side in the seat that I really like being in right now and going, I wonder when she wants her car back. But it is literally her decision, honestly. It's whenever she wants to. She's already been in the car this year in a test session, and I have a feeling after watching her take her helmet off and the smile she had on her face, I have a feeling I'm a short-term tenant at this point.
Well, but at this point you're chasing a championship, so you got to carry that out, right?
She most definitely will let me finish the season out for sure because of the points, and there's bonuses that go with that, and that affects the crew guys' bonuses at the end of the year. So a driver swap mid-season in this scenario is not advantageous for anybody.
Which you've raced everything, right? I mean, whether we're talking about, USACs on dirt, whether we're talking about IndyCar, whether we're talking about, Cup cars, which one of them, if any, is the closest to the learning curve of getting in the top fuel dragster?
Somebody asked me a similar question last weekend when we were at Sonoma, and I said 90 to 95% of the skills that made me really good at what I did with sprint cars and IndyCar and NASCAR, put it in a box, tape the box up, put save, and shove it off in a corner because you don't use 90 to 95% of it. It's a different skill set, but there are some variables that do pertain and transfer over, and it's actually things that have helped me be good. And anytime that we have to pedal the car, for example, on race day, it spins the tires. You got to get the tire caught back up and then roll back into the gas real slow to not get the tires spinning again. That is something that other drivers have said I'm really good at already. And
but was it weird for you to not be the best at it? It had been a long time since you've sat in a cockpit and not been, immediately the best at it, right?
Well, you wouldn't think that that's something that was going to be a variable in the equation, but because of what I did in dirt track racing and learning how to catch the tire and keep it from spinning, if it does turn the tire loose, I've been really good at catching it, getting the tire caught up and getting back in the gas, and have won some rounds that way. So to hear your peers that you're racing against say he's really good at that, I don't know that I'm the judge of that, but reaction time is probably the biggest thing for the drivers. And I was 5th in average last year, and to me that was a huge win because you had Tony Schumacher, who's an 8-time world champion. We were just ahead of him. There were a lot of other drivers that have been around drag racing a lot longer than me that we were outperforming on the reaction time side. But there's 4 drivers ahead of us that we're still trying to catch, and we're still trying to catch them, but we're closing in a little bit this year. But it's hard because it's not like you go outside and you make laps and practice that. I mean, it's like Guido Antonelli, that's Ron Cap's crew chief, said. He said reaction time is exactly that. It's how your brain reacts to seeing that light coming on and you hitting the gas pedal. So it's hard to train for that. I'm sure there's probably better ways to accomplish it, but I just haven't found them yet.
You strike me, Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart, our guest here in studio, and of course, as we mentioned, 48 points out from getting that top fuel, taking the top spot, top fuel. Big part of that's going to be at the U.S. Nationals coming up on August 27th. It runs till September 1st. You're a Foyt guy, and by that I mean you're a guy that you got about a 30-second window before you're ready to grab a wrench if you have to, right? With this particular sport, is it the most mechanically inclined that a driver needs to be of anything that you've been in terms of so much of, to me, and I'm just giving you an outsider perspective, and I know it's the case in every form of motorsports, but people forget what a team sport it is. But in this particular one, when you're there and you're going that speed, everything has to be perfect. And so much of that goes to the men and women that are preparing that car for you. Is that the case? Are you as cognizant, as aware of that as any time in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if you watch us on Sundays and even during qualifying, I mean, we'll have 2 runs normally on each day of qualifying. And when that car comes back and the cadence and the procedure, those guys, watching them tear the motor down and literally having it reassembled in 40 minutes and ready to fire up is amazing to me. If I can tell you this, though, if I grab a wrench in that pit area, every crew guy watches me because they're scared to death for me to touch the race car with a wrench right now.
Right.
But it's super important. Every one of them is specialized in their field. So whether it's the guy that's assembling the pistons and rods and he puts those in the motor, or if it's the guy that's building the heads, putting the valve springs and the valves in them, all these different things, they have to be really good at what they do because, nitromethane is a very volatile fuel. And if things go wrong in a nitro car, it goes wrong big, and there's big booms, big explosions, big pops when it goes wrong. So you have to trust that these guys are absolutely doing it the right way. But to watch them do an assembly in 40 minutes is just insane.
And, Tony, one of the cool things for folks that go out, if you're going to go out there and you're going to stop by and you're going to see the NHRA U.S. Nationals, you get to see all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you get your ticket and you're walking around, and I mean, you're walking right there and you're seeing people taking apart engines and putting it right back together. And I mean, you're not seeing it from, the J stand. You're right there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best things that NHRA has to offer. I think that's why I tell people it's fun to watch it on TV. It's 10 times better to go to the racetrack and be able to walk around,
And
walk in
feel
the
it,
pit area.
right?
And when we say feel it, it's not
Feel it.
reach out and touch it, feel
Right.
it. But when those cars go by, I mean, our motors make almost 12,000 horsepower now. And when that car goes by, the concussion from the exhaust, you feel it in your body. And then you can't explain that to somebody what that's like. But it's really been fun the last 2 years for me, coming from IndyCar and NASCAR and dirt track racing. We've had all these fans start coming to drag races for the first time. And you catch them at the end of the day and you say, what do you think? And the most common response is, we had no idea. That has been the most common response. They're like, we've watched it on TV, but until you get down there and you smell the fumes, you see the burnouts, you physically watch these cars go down the track in person, you cannot describe it to somebody, and they love it. And it's like I tell everybody, if you're a NASCAR fan, you can still watch NASCAR and watch drag racing. Same with IndyCar, same with dirt tracks. Doesn't mean you have to give up one to do the other, but it's really cool to see fans come out for the first time and enjoy it.
You are a businessman, Tony Stewart. I mean, in addition to racing, obviously you own the team. I mean, all you have to do is look at the partners you have. You're doing a Dodge paint scheme for this particular weekend for the U.S. Nationals. Fans voted on it. You've got Mobile One on board. You've got Direct Connection, Advanced Auto Parts. You've got a ton of partners. Okay,
You're the best media guy
So-
I know. You realize you do a better job at hitting my partners than I do.
Well, hey, I mean, I got to hit. This is the only time I hit the curb. Curb.com, by the way, right? Although I will say, if you and your wife can survive the fact that you're sharing a car, it's like when my girlfriend and I went to Ireland and I had to drive the car and she was a passenger in Ireland with me. If you can survive that as a couple, you can survive anything,
Well,
right?
keep in mind, and I think we get away with that because we don't have to ride with each other in that car.
That's correct.
If
right?
one was driving and the other
It's a
was
little
not,
tense.
I don't think we would survive one round with each other.
Right. You're probably right, yeah. But so with the business aspect of it, I wanted your thoughts on this because there was big business moves in motorsports today. And I'm sure you heard this.
I've heard, but I don't
That-
know anything about it. But go ahead.
So Fox,
Yep.
Fox Television or Fox Broadcasting now has purchased 1/3 of the Penske Entertainment Group, meaning that they now have a 1/3 ownership in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the IndyCar Series, and IMS Productions. Your reaction as somebody who has obviously been a part of really all of those things.
Like I said, I'm hearing it today as well for the first time and don't really know the details. We've been doing the car wash, so to speak, this week or today. But I think it's a huge move, obviously. I mean, that's a massive move that we've never seen. I don't think you've ever seen a broadcast partner become a part owner in not only a series, but
Right.
I didn't know the Speedway was part of it as well. So for Fox to have part ownership in the Speedway, I think that is massive at this point.
And I would assume, I mean, listen, I'm no rocket scientist by any stretch, but for example, and I'd have to look at the contracts, and I know you would too, but, clearly the TNT partnership with Cup Racing at the Speedway, I would think that has to come to an end, right? If
You
now
would assume so.
I mean, do you see it as you're a promoter? And I think at times, Tony, IndyCar itself, any promotion you can get for that series is important. Can a television partner be an adequate promoter above and beyond just promoting within their own network and stepping outside of that?
I definitely think so. I think this is a scenario where, and like I said, just knowing the little bit I know about it so far, if you've got a broadcast partner that is now part owner of a series, they're going to work even harder to promote that. They have all the other programming that they're going to have on the channel. But now, being an owner in it, they have skin in the game. So they are going to put even more effort than they would have before.
Did TV, when you were racing Cup, did you ever feel that TV was too involved, just in terms of whether it be the schedule, whether it be the format, etc.? Was there ever an overstep?
I think that was probably the only time I can think of a scenario where that came into play was the stage racing. And that was literally what I was told at the time, was because TV was asking for 5% more viewership time of the race. So what fans were doing is they were watching the first 25% of the race. They were going and mowing their yard, going in to get lunch, and coming back and watching the last 25% of it. I don't know what the significance of it was, but getting 5% more time, and I'm assuming it's in ad dollars,
right,
made a huge difference to network. And that's what the stage racing was all about, was just to try to gain 5% more viewership time.
And I can't recall, so pardon my ignorance here, that you were still racing then or not?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how did it change as a driver?
Wait a minute, I say that I was not. I was still an owner.
But you were still an owner. So
I was still an owner, but I wasn't a driver in that.
And so did you enjoy the strategy and the new strategy ever, or did you find it hokey?
It wasn't traditional by any means, but I think as time goes on, you have to find ways to somewhat, so to speak, reinvent. You can't just keep doing the same trick over and over. The purists and the traditionalists didn't like it, and there's a ton of people that don't like the stage racing, but it does create unique situations and scenarios where guys needing points sometimes would stay out and take a chance. And guys that were in a good place in points come in, get tires before the pits closed at the end of a segment, and come back out. They might finish 12th, but then when the pit cycle comes after that caution comes out at the end of the stage, then they got the lead back. So I think it did create some unique situations and scenarios that the fans could grasp onto. But, talking to a lot of the fans, it just wasn't as well received as we all thought it would be.
Okay, lastly, because I know you got a lunch to get to, so we'll let you run. But I want
to
give you the opportunity.
I'm a fat kid. I like food. You know
What's that?
I said I'm a fat kid. I like food.
You know what? Actually, you look like you're not as much as the last time I saw you, though. Like you.
Well, you realize why? I got an 8-month-old son that now crawls, so you can't even turn around and blink without him being halfway across the room. So you're just chasing all day.
If you have extra 20 minutes, you're not eating, you're sleeping, right? You're
yeah,
getting
exactly.
It where you can,
Too
right?
tired to eat.
But I want to give you the chance here. August 27th until September 1st is the U.S. Nationals. I love it. I've been to it many a times. I think it's a must. But from your standpoint, I want you to use that microphone to tell the listeners of Indianapolis why they need to be there.
I think starts Friday night. Friday night's our first run. It's under the lights, like you and I mentioned earlier. I mean, you're looking at 4-foot to 5-foot tall flames coming out of each side of the motor as you're going down the racetrack. It is incredible sensation, and to see these cars at night is amazing. 2 more days of qualifying. Funny Car has the call out this weekend, so you got to race within a race.
And you guys are right there with that as well, right?
Yeah, we're there, and then obviously Monday is the races. So to be able to come out and see this, and like I said, every ticket gets you everywhere but the starting line. You can't get that at a NASCAR race. You can't go to the Indy 500 and just buy a ticket to the stands and be able to walk in the garage area and see the cars and drivers like that. But not only can you go see them build these motors, the cars do warm-ups in the pits, and you can smell it, you can hear it, you can feel it. It's just an experience that it's hard to explain. But like I said, every time we've had new fans that have followed other forms of motorsports and they've came for the first time, they love it and they're hooked on it.
It's like a Kiss concert, except for the music's good. That's the best way to say it, right?
And we'll paint Josh's face up like Gene Simmons and parade him through the garage.
Ace Frehley, we'll get them all, right, Peter?
Yeah.
All right, hey, it's always good to see you, Tony. Appreciate the time. August 27th, September 1st, U.S. Nationals. Definitely want to be there for it. Look for the Dodge that Tony Stewart is running in the Top Fuel standpoint. Appreciate the time as always. Good seeing you, man.
Thanks, bud. You too.
We'll take a quick break. We'll reset everything. Bob Kravitz joins us. We'll talk about Anthony Richardson, the Colts, and the night practice. We roll along here, Aquarian Company on the Fan. One big star to the next. Tony Stewart into Bob Kravitz. Bob Kravitz, of course, bobkravitz.com, where you can read his work. I thought Bob had one of the, every once in a while, and Rich Nye is another guy that comes to mind on this. I have always said that when I was in television and we would be in the scrum where you're all sitting around and everybody's firing questions, Rich Nye is the guy that more often than not would ask a question, and I would think to myself, that's a great question. I wish I'd thought of that. And Bob Kravitz will send a tweet or a post, and I will think to myself, it is a great point, and I wish I'd thought of that. And Bob came up with one to start camp, an observation that I think is spot on. And that is, Bob, I thought you made an interesting observation about the fact that there seems to be this about face from the Colts on the way they're handling Anthony Richardson. So
Yes.
if you could go back to your original observation and then carry that into, do you feel they have done the correct about face?
Well, I mean, originally they were quick to give Anthony the job after just one preseason game, and I thought that was probably the late owner who had a big say in that. Now they're talking about being patient with him. In fact, Zach Kiefer has a story in The Athletic, I think it ran today, about how they're going to be more patient with Anthony. I just think it's really important that they commit to whoever they're going to go with. I think it's going to be Anthony. I think it should be. I think that Jones has got to thoroughly outplay him in the preseason. We'll learn a lot more after they go to Baltimore and start playing some preseason games. But it's clear that from the very start, they probably should have made Anthony wait, for 1 year, given him that year to learn. And, this is a guy with 13 starts in college. So to think that he's going to be ready for the big time is foolhardy.
Do you think, Bob, that Anthony Richardson, I mean, look, hindsight's always 20/20, right? But with that said, do you think Anthony Richardson, in terms of wishing that he could have been given more time, is that because he needed to more physically tweak himself to play quarterback or emotionally tweak himself to play quarterback?
I think it's more of a mental thing. I think he had to learn how to be a CEO of an organization as a quarterback. I just don't think he was ready. I mean, 13. Look, he's got the physical tools. There's no question. They've done a lot of work on his footwork, on his vision, everything else. But no, I think it was more of a mental issue with him getting ready. And again, after 13 starts, what do you expect?
Do you think that Anthony Richardson, Bob, and I guess it's a two-part question, do you think he truly understood what was required to be an NFL quarterback, and do you think he understands it now?
I think he understands it now. Based on some of his responses to questions, again, the Kiefer story is quite good. He talks with Anthony quite a bit. I think he understands that, he was handed everything like right away because of his natural, physical talent. I think he understands now, but at the time, no, he had no earthly clue. I think that getting benched last year was a wake-up call, and if it's not, then they've got bigger problems than we thought.
Bob, I have said, Bob Kravitz is our guest. At the beginning of, when he was signed, I had this feeling that Daniel Jones was going to be the week one starter, okay? Now, I'm not saying that I'm sticking by that, but I believe this, and I want you to tell me if this makes sense. It's what I've said on this show. If Daniel Jones is starting week one, it is far more likely that is simply because Anthony Richardson didn't win the job, not because Daniel Jones did. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think this is all it's all in Anthony's hands at this point. I think for Jones to beat him out, he's got to be wretched. And so far he hasn't been. He's been decent. The last couple of days in pads, I went to one practice and I read up on the other ones. He's looked quite good, and he's throwing the ball well on the move. He's making the intermediate, the layups he's making. So I see growth. I more than anything, I see growth in just his approach, and his professionalism. I think, it was a bad scene for him last year, but I think that has a chance to be a real inflection point in his career. If it's not, then they've got bigger problems than we all thought.
And here's the thing, Bob, and I think it's important to point this out for people. And look, it's not like I know him well. That would be totally unfair of me to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that people should at least understand that while we can talk about Anthony Richardson in terms of his maturity or his dedication, there is no body of work that I'm aware or nor any evidence that he's a bad guy. You know what I mean? I think he might have been an immature guy. I don't think he's a bad guy.
No, I agree completely. I mean, he's a sweetheart of a guy. I mean, there's no question. The way he deals with us, the way he deals with fans, the way he deals with teammates. I mean, I think everybody's rooting for him. Nothing against Daniel Jones, who, seems to be a fine enough human being. But I think people are rooting for Anthony because I think he's just immature. I mean, I think back to my 20s, and my God, I mean, to think that at that age to be given the sun and the moon and be asked to navigate that at the age of 22, 23, I couldn't have done it. I'd have been a disaster. So, I just think when you've only got 13 games of experience, I mean, you can't expect that the guy's going to come onto the scene ready-made to go, and it's been a struggle for him, clearly, but hopefully last year hopefully after last year his head screwed on right.
Bob, do you see also the same growth or the same tweak that you see from one year to the next or have seen out of Anthony Richardson? In any way, have you seen the same in terms of approach from Shane Steichen?
Boy, that's a good question. This is me holding off on an answer because I can't come up with one. No, I think it's basically the same thing with Steichen, honestly. I mean, what do you have in mind there? What's your thought process?
I think it's hard to say because he is very, and I'll give Steichen credit in this regard, he's very rehearsed in the in the answers that he gives. He's kind of generic, right, in that form. And it's hard to know now whether his approach from a coaching standpoint is different because we're only seeing, an hour of practice, right? But it does seem like it was the first time, like with Anthony Richardson, and I'm going to use that not to hyper in on that subject or that, but I think he's been a little bit more transparent in areas that he wants or expects more out of guys. And I feel like he was more of a, quote, player's coach when he first got here.
Yeah, I guess there's some truth to that. I mean, he's working these guys hard. It's a more physical camp, which I think will benefit everybody, including the quarterbacks. But, I think the first year they were just trying to get Anthony up and running. I think the competition is really at the center of what's going on at this camp. And I do think, now with pads, we got a better idea of what we're looking at. And I think going to Baltimore against an elite team, we'll find out a whole hell of a lot more.
Bob Kravitz is our guest. You can read his work at bobkravitz.com. Bob, I guess last thing before we move, I got a couple other things I want to ask you about, but on the Colts front, and I've asked this really of everybody we've talked to, I look at it, and I get it. I get the fact that this is the NFLPA and the collective bargaining agreement, and it's all been agreed upon. I get it. But is there part of you, or does it just make us old that I'm still, and I assume you are as well, almost incredulous to the fact that you get out there at 11:30 and you're like, they're done for the day, and that's it?
I know. I remember going up to Greeley, Colorado, for Broncos camp, and they would have well over 100 players there. They would do two-a-days. Guys were dying. I mean, not dying, but guys were, back then drinking water was a sign of weakness. I mean, it was insane. It was just nuts. But yeah, I mean, they don't, I hear a more physical camp and I'm like, how? I mean, they're still not hitting anybody really. I mean, no, it's interesting. It's not what it used to be. I remember Dan Reeves talking about how the game had changed and how training camp had made players soft. And, I think that's probably one of the reasons we see so many injuries early in the season, because guys aren't physically ready to go.
So, Bob, when I was in college, my freshman year, I went to University of Kansas. Two of my good buddies were both from Cherry Creek, which you're probably familiar with. It's a, a big school in Denver.
Carmel.
So we go back. Yeah, it's the Carmel. So we go back to Denver for a weekend, right? We're hanging out at my buddy's house, and it's like 2:30 in the morning, and one of them gets a brilliant idea that a girl he went to high school with, who's at University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, Colorado, he thinks he might have a shot at her. So we decide to road trip. It's like 45 minutes, I think. We go to Greeley, Colorado at like 3:15 in the morning to hang out while he goes and tries to like throw a Hail Mary for this girl he went to high school with. We get there. We're all excited for him. We're wishing him the best. We're giving him the Godspeed speech. He walks in, and it turns out she's got a new boyfriend she met at University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, Colorado. And we turned around and immediately went back. And I'm thinking that my experience in Greeley, Colorado, probably even still was better than a lot of the guys that were trying out for the Broncos, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was brutal back in the day. I mean, two-a-days every day. Every single day they did two-a-days.
And
now
you're at the University
now you go
of no
an
credit.
hour and exactly. And that, let me tell you, Greeley is it's not typical Colorado.
Correct.
It's not beautiful.
Correct.
It's not. It's not a beautiful, filled with beautiful mountain vistas.
Yeah.
Truth of the matter is, it kind of stinks.
Yeah. No, it's a fun drive to make back when a guy just wants to listen to The Cure and like Christopher Cross at 4:00 in the morning and needs to be consoled. Real fun times, right?
That's a good time.
Hey, Bob, what do you make of, before we let you go, Bob Kravitz, our guest. I just talked to Tony Stewart about it, but I wanted your opinion as well.
Yeah.
I know it's all new news to all of us. What, if anything, was your reaction to now seeing that the Fox television group is a 1/3 owner of the Penske Entertainment Corporation, which is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar?
Well, I don't have a lot of deep thoughts on it because I'm just kind of getting up to speed like everybody else. But it sounds like a great deal. I mean, it sounds like, they're going to work well together. You've got your media, lined up till. I mean, I think the contract's till 26 or 27, and it's going to go quite a bit longer now. I think it's a good deal for everybody, for Fox, for Penske. What did Stewart have to say?
Well, Tony was saying that, the same thing. Like, he's a promoter, so, he's like, I know what it means to promote races, and the television partner is going to have a financial stake in it now, right? It's going to be in their best interest to make sure as many people know about this as possible. I'll tell you one of the things, Bob, as I've kind of let this settle in a little bit. A couple of years ago, we were all asked to submit who we thought would be a good broadcast or a good title sponsor for IndyCar before NTT became the sponsor. And at that time, and this was about 8 years ago, and I said, you're starting to see more live sports and streaming. And at that time, I was motivated by the fact that I had seen a New York Jets Buffalo Bills game was being carried live on Twitter. This was like 8 years ago. And I thought about the fact that IMS Productions is owned by the Speedway. They have television edit bays. They have television cameras. It's a production company. And now knowing that Fox is getting ready to launch, and thank you to somebody who sent this to me, but I had forgotten this. The Fox Television Group is getting ready to launch an app that is their version of the one-stop shopping, the everything right here for you. And
Right.
I think probably knowing that this means that they have an ownership within IMS Productions, it is going to allow them to do their own reality programming to promote the series itself, like you've seen with Formula One and et cetera. But they now have ownership stake in the group that is putting that all together. So it makes sense to me that means that eventually perhaps all IndyCar events move to an app and move to streaming, which to people over 50 sounds totally foreign, and people under 30 it sounds totally normal. And that's the demo, Bob, they've got to go after.
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, it's I mean, in the media we've got to change along with the times, and I think that's probably the way they're going to go. I think it's a good deal for everybody. I think it's a great deal for IndyCar and for Penske.
You going to be out at practice tonight?
I'm thinking about it. I'm actually doing I'm talking for a documentary this afternoon on the 2013 Colts Chiefs comeback game, the 45-44.
That was the Andrew Luck Superman game, right?
The Andrew Luck Superman game. That's what everybody remembers. So I actually watched the game again this morning just to, get my memory going. And so I'll probably do that, and I'll probably head on up to practice. I'll be curious to see if Carly talks, because this is when Jim always used to talk. So I got to find out if she'll be made available to us.
Listen, if she does talk and you've got a chance to talk to her, Bob, you can put your bid in on the house, right?
I see that. It's only, $12 million?
That's right, yeah. I mean...
Yeah, I got that.
Second mortgage on your home, you're good to go, right?
Oh, not a problem. I'm as good as moved in.
I think it's got one of the houses he has a full ice skating rink in it, too.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for you, right?
He does have a full... Yeah, he used to ask me to come over and be a goaltender for his grandson. And I said, thanks, but no thanks, because the kid would probably light me up.
You were a goaltender like all the way through, right?
I was a goaltender from the very start, and I played till I was probably in my early 50s.
Okay.
When,
So let me ask you this,
that.
Bob, before I let you go. I don't think I've asked you this before. I can't recall. When I go to hockey games, and this is going to show my naivete about hockey, and I really enjoy hockey. I think live hockey is super fun to watch. It doesn't mean I totally understand everything going on, because I didn't grow up with it, right? But I see a lot of times where the goalie, as his team and everything is taking place at the other end of the ice, will grab his stick and bang it like 3 times on the ice. What is that meaning? Is that calling for a shift change? Is it sending out what exactly is going on, or is he just bored?
No, it's usually you bang your stick on the ice when your team is ending a power play or is shorthanded. You're letting your bench know that the penalty time is up, and you're just letting them know that time is up on the penalty, and they need to be aware of that.
So is the goaltender almost like a safety in football, in the fact that because they're the last line of defense, they're also in charge of kind of overseeing some things?
Very much like a catcher in baseball.
Okay.
I mean, you control a lot more than you think. You think you're just sitting there waiting for the next puck to hit you in the face, but not necessarily the truth. It's not necessarily the way it goes. No, you've got to know the game, and the ebbs and flows of the game, and that's what that's all about.
Eddie, you're a catcher, right?
That's right.
You're basically the goaltender of baseball.
Exactly.
See the things we learn on this program? Yeah. This is what we do. We educate and entertain on this show. Bob, appreciate it as always, all right?
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bob Kravitz, our friend, bobkravitz.com, where you can read his work. Speaking of reading work, Zach Kiefer, the column that he had mentioned about Anthony Richardson. Very interesting. Zach's set to join us coming up 2 o'clock hour here. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Eddie, are you becoming a fan without admitting it?
No.
You can admit it.
I just like a couple of their songs. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. A couple becomes 6, becomes 12. I have if you'd like, I have an extra bucket hat.
Is it big enough?
Good question. I didn't say it's a hula hoop, just a bucket hat. So I want to get back into what I was just talking about with this announcement with Fox. And what I'm about to say is speculative. But we were just in here talking about it. Zach Kiefer coming up just a couple minutes from now. And what I'm about to say, in large part, may sound very nuanced or, yeah, Jake, welcome to 2025.
Get off your rocker.
But a lot of people don't realize this. When we go to a race, whether it's the IndyCar Iowa race, whether it's IndyCar at Laguna Seca, wherever it may be, there's a tent, we call it the TV tent, inside the television compound at the racetrack that has within it a caterer that, because we're there literally from 9 in the morning until like 7 o'clock at night. So they have a caterer there that provides lunch and, a snack, that kind of thing for everybody. I don't mean just the people you hear on the microphone. I mean the camera operators, the cable line, the people laying down cable lines, the people working in the trucks that are directors and producers and creating the graphics you see on television, all of it, okay? And the radio side of it as well. Our engineer, Rick Evans, our on-site engineer that's putting everything together. Everybody's hanging out in the same area during rain delays, etc. And
what do you do during rain delays, Jake? We play games? We play tic-tac-toe?
That is a great question. Try to nap, read, shoot the bull, give hypothetical questions.
No, shoot the bull. What does that mean?
They literally bring a large steer with horns by, and then everybody gets no, just hanging out, chewing the cud, right? So all of those folks, when people ask me, they're like, how's it going to look different now with Fox versus NBC versus ESPN, ABC? The vast majority of the behind-the-scenes folks putting that all together are the same because they are contracted out via IMS Productions. And so you have, right across the street from the Speedway, a television production company and a very large sports television production company that, to put it in these terms, it is a bakery that is putting together baked goods that then Kroger sells some of them and Schnucks sells some of them and CVS sells some of them. So IMS Productions is a television production company right across from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that's in the same corporate building as IndyCar. And that production house has very talented editors, videographers, all of it, to put together things like documentaries, daily shows, race recaps. A lot of what you see on IndyCar.com is done by IMS Productions. The broadcast that you see for the Professional Bull Riders Association is done by IMS Productions. And as I mentioned, at one time, many of the visiting teams, when they would come into town, the Boston Celtics, the whatever, their production crews would be facilitated and their broadcast would be facilitated by IMS Productions. So I think that Fox, I don't know this, merely conjecture on my behalf, but it makes sense. I think that Fox, like every network now, you see it. Paramount has, and I think Paramount is CBS. So if you have the Paramount app, you're able to watch like any show that's ever been on CBS. People love it, right? One of the years during the Super Bowl, every third ad was for Paramount, and it was like, this is the best. NBC has had Peacock, which you go on that and you're seeing all this NBC programming. Obviously, Amazon has Prime. Apple TV has, and so all of the networks are conditioning and getting ready for the fact that you want to move your real estate into an area that you entirely control. So if Fox is getting ready to launch an all-inclusive Fox app, maybe they already have it, that has everything on it. So you can go on there and you can watch The Simpsons, and then you can watch old episodes of, The X-Files, and you can also watch this week's IndyCar race on Fox, or you can watch the NFL on Fox, all on this app. And so my assumption is that Fox looked at it and said, if we need content for our app and we need sports content for our app, and we already are invested in IndyCar in terms of broadcasting their races, so what we can do is by moving everything onto an app, we can actually, in doing that, be it subscription fees or whatever else, we can kind of cut out middlemen in terms of the dollars and the revenue and the generation. So let's condition our viewers towards going there to find their IndyCar stuff, and let's entice them because we have a production company now that we have 1/3 ownership in, let's go ahead and put together shows like you saw of Drive to Survive that lifted Formula One into a different stratosphere in terms of the American conscience. So now, in that regard, it is entirely possible that Fox is saying, hey, by buying 1/3 of the Penske Entertainment Group, which owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series and IMS Productions, even though Fox already had their own production stuff, I get it. But you now have a turnkey, self-sufficient division of people that can immediately give you programming and put everything and funnel it into that app and continue to grow that brand. And I think it's entirely possible that's what this is all about. I don't know that's what's going to happen, but I would guess it would not surprise me at all if, and that sounds crazy, if I would have told you, and I can tell you because when I suggested the Amazon thing several years ago, I mean, there definitely was the question of like, are people really going to go like on an app to watch sports? But look at it now. You already have NASCAR races on Prime. You have Major League Baseball on Apple TV. And so if I were to tell you, and I don't know this, I want to be very clear. I don't know this. I'm strictly prognosticating. But if I were to tell you that the 2029 IndyCar season, if not sooner, that the entire season would be on the Fox Indy app. And leading up to that race, hey, IndyCar's racing this weekend at Laguna Seca. On Wednesday, I'm going to watch Build Up to Laguna. And it's going to show the inside the bus with Alex Palou from last week and getting ready for Laguna. And here's video of Renus VK in his simulator at his home in Florida getting ready for Laguna Seca. And, oh, wow, like Kyle Kirkwood and Connor Daly, like, did you see what they were saying? Like, and they're showing it on this app leading up to the race, just like you've seen in other sports. But you do that on that app, and then that race, the qualifying sessions, the practice sessions, and the race are on, let's say, a Fox Indy app. And then probably the Indy 500 stays with that as well as on network television. But I would think that that is a big motivation in this. And if you are the Penske Entertainment Group, I also understand it because you're getting capital up front to continue to bolster and promote your series. So that's how I would see that now that and again, I apologize that I'm a slow learner, but when this news came out this morning, I was kind of out of commission, and then I came in here and looked at that, and then over the course of the show, and especially in talking to Tony Stewart and whatever else, it just started jogging my mind of, okay, this is probably what this all means. I could be totally wrong in that. Wouldn't be the first time. The third. I was wrong about something in 1978 and then once in 1986.
Before we go to break, Jake, shout out to Roy Hibbert in the chat. He's not actually Roy Hibbert, but engaged now. Proposed to his girlfriend said they've been together for a while. So
how long's a while?
I don't know. He didn't specifically say, but he's one of the regulars that's in the company break room.
Do we know her name?
We don't know his or her name. I think we want to keep that confidential.
Oh, so this guy's name is not really Roy Hibbert.
No.
I mean, in other words, it could be that his name is Roy Hibbert. He's just not former pacer Roy Hibbert.
Correct.
So this is not Roy Hibbert. His birth name is not Roy Hibbert. That is a pseudonym that he goes by in our chat room, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
But congrats to him.
You know what? All I know is this, and I'm just going on conjecture as well. But if his name is Roy Hibbert, and I congratulate him on the engagement, but he needs to keep his fiance away from the pseudonym of Paul George on the chat, right?
Oh, okay.
That was a rumor. That was never actually true. Congratulations, air quotes, Roy Hibbert on the engagement. Much congratulations. Many congratulations. Zach Kiefer next. Is that right?
That is correct.
Zach Kiefer, Athletic. Interesting article. Anthony Richardson next. I'm literally probably the only person on planet Earth that considers Our House by Madness one of the great songs of all time. But, man, I love it. Colts practicing tonight, Grand Park in Westfield. Zach Kiefer is still a go-to when it comes to the Colts, despite the fact that his responsibilities go to all teams within the National Football League in his writing with The Athletic. But he did have a very interesting piece recently about Anthony Richardson, and but that being Zach, joins us on the program now. Zach, how are you?
I'm good, Jake. How are you doing?
I can't complain, man. You know, it's the polar vortex outside. I don't know if you noticed that. It's like 70. It's dropped 62 degrees in 2 days. So that's good, right?
Jake, I'm in Ashburn, Virginia right now. So at least it's not 95 degrees like it was, Tuesday when I was in Westfield?
Okay, now hold on. Now, let me guess this. Yeah, the other day in Westfield, by the way, 121 degrees, new record. Okay, so Ashburn, Virginia. Don't tell me because I like guessing games. Are you there on an NFL assignment, Zach?
Yes.
Okay, so are you there for a training camp?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to guess that Ashburn, Virginia, there would be two that jump out immediately as possibilities, but I'll go with the obvious and say the Washington Commanders.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct.
How far is that from D.C.?
Man, it's a pain. Like, I used to complain about the drive up to Anderson for Colts camp. This was like 45 minutes this morning. I'm staying right by Reagan in downtown Arlington, and to get out to Ashburn where the team practices, it was like 45 minutes, and Dan Quinn, the head coach, spoke at 7:30 this morning. So I don't mind the early morning, but it was an early morning.
Yeah, that's early. Listen, I remember covering the Rams and being in Macomb, Illinois, and to get there, you had to actually take a left at Neptune. I mean, it was, you know what I mean? It was like, where in the world are we?
Yeah, I've had that thought a lot lately.
So let's get to this in terms of your article with Anthony Richardson. And you know, I thought it was interesting because there has been so much speculation about the workouts that he's done, who he has worked out with, and where things stand with the Indianapolis Colts. You were around him. You spent time around him, Zach. What did you learn?
Yeah, I came away more impressed than I thought I would be. And I don't want to get ahead of myself by any means because nothing really matters right now, right? Like anything they say, it doesn't matter. What Anthony Richardson does on the field this season, if he does end up being the starter, that's what matters. But, you know, I asked him, when you walked off the field after the last game of last season, which was a chaotic, disappointing season for him, we don't need to relive that. You know, what'd you tell yourself? And he said that I can't be slacking anymore. And that gave me pause because if you didn't get it in year two, what's going to change? And then he explained it. And I walked away impressed because of the second part of that answer. And look, if the light doesn't come on this year, the surprising part to me is that Chris Ballard is willing to wait until year four. They're not gonna jump the gun on this. He doesn't want Anthony Richardson going to a different team in the future and flourishing with that team. So the Colts are going to be patient. But with Anthony Richardson, he talked a lot about his footwork. And he talked about a lot about accountability and how even if it's not his fault that something went wrong, it is his fault that something went wrong. That's just what quarterbacks have to accept with that position. So for me, I'm not a guy that's around Anthony Richardson every day like the beat writers, but I will say this. I've never walked away from a conversation more convinced that he's starting to get it. But again, it's July 31st, and everyone's going to say everything rosy right now. And what really matters is what they do on the field.
When you say get it, do you mean getting it mentally or getting it physically?
He said last year he knew the offense. He said this year he's starting to master the offense. So there's that, right? And guys learn at different clips. I'm working on this big quarterback project about why young quarterbacks struggle, and so many. And we're not talking about the Peyton Mannings of the world and the Andrew Lucks and et cetera, but Bruce Arians told me that young quarterbacks take 3 years to learn the NFL offenses that they're given. Like 3 years. Like this is his third year. And the other reality is they screwed this up. The Colts did. They screwed this up. Part of this is on the player, but a lot of this is on the organization. They rushed him onto the field. And almost the worst thing that happened was that he played well those first couple games as a rookie, right? He played pretty well. They had that Rams come back. They beat the Texans by double digits. Like he played really well before he got hurt. Then they signed Jonathan Taylor because they thought they had the quarterback in place. But here's what happened. Richardson got hurt And when you're hurt, you're not around the team. And when you're not around the team as a young quarterback, you don't build those daily habits that you need to build as a young quarterback. Like a lot of quarterbacks told me this over the years, like you need to know what a Monday looks like, what a Tuesday looks like. Richardson did not know that. And again, I'm not excusing him. Like this is on him. He needs to figure this stuff out. But what they should have done is they should have started Gardner Minshew, which he ended up playing anyway. They should have started Minshew. They should have had Richardson become his shadow. He would have learned what the work week looks like. And then they could have maybe started him in year 2 or year 3, but they didn't. And everything was set back, right? So last year he becomes a starter. It's his team. He plays well. He plays poorly, but he doesn't have those habits. He doesn't have a work week down. And that really blew up in their face because he wasn't preparing the right way. The team was getting frustrated. Some players were getting frustrated. And so they benched him. And so almost this year, it feels like they're restarting the whole cycle.
Zach, when you think that, or when you say that the Colts, I think we all can say they started him too early, right? Do you believe that the greater damage there was giving him a false entitlement, or was it letting his confidence get rattled because then it didn't go well?
I don't think he's a guy who loses confidence. I mean, would you, if you were built like that? And these are some of the things that Anthony Richardson has said. And again, I don't want to sound like everybody else here, but he's a good kid. Like, he's a genuinely good kid. And I have conversations with plenty of athletes where I walk away and I'm like, I don't really like that guy. I like Anthony Richardson. He's a good kid. He's respectful. He seems to get it. But he said early on after his first year, like, the NFL is not that hard. It's not that much harder than college. That's complete BS. It is absolutely that hard. And last year, it was the tap-out thing. He said he was tired, and maybe he was, but the optics of that, you just have to know as a starting quarterback that you just don't say that. You just don't say it at the podium. That's going to follow him for a while when you tap out of a game because you're tired. A divisional opponent on the road in a close game. So I just think he's green. He's just naive to this. And I think more time learning the system, learning the process, learning the building, learning the job, like literally learning the job would have benefited him a little bit more. But again, here we are, and it's going to be fascinating to see if he can string together some consistency. Because when I asked Daniel Jones, like, what did Shane Steichen tell you about what is going to win this job? And Daniel Jones is not the most interesting quote in the world, but he said, look, the coaches told us they're going to go with the guy they can trust. So as of right now, based on the body of evidence in the past, you would think that would be Daniel Jones. The day I was at camp, Richardson looked a little bit better. It's early August, right? We got a long way to go. But I wonder how this shakes out, because that's the biggest gap that Anthony Richardson has to clear, has to close, right? He has to show that he can be way more consistent. Because right now, if you go based on the body of work that both have produced in the NFL, Jones hasn't beat in that category.
Zach, let's be real here, Zach. If you grade it on the curve of me being double the age, I am pretty much built like that, don't you think? Relatively speaking.
I didn't say it.
Come on. I got news for you. We're looking at, over a half century here. This kind of sculpting, come on. I'm the AR of the radio world. Not really. You see J&B now. He's in great shape. Zach Kiefer joining us from The Athletic.
He is in great shape, by the way.
What's that?
He is in great shape, by the way.
I know. I'm telling you, man. Premier Weight Loss. They hooked him up, and they do the whole doctor deal. He looks great.
I haven't seen you running through Mercury Kessler, man. Where have you been?
I've been busy. This time of year, I'm not. Here's the thing: I never run outside though, right? I'm an indoor runner, but this time of year, because I'm traveling all over the place doing racing stuff, it's the winter time, and I only run in the winter in the gym. Truth be told, to keep my energy level up. It has nothing to do with the vanity of looking this sexy. You don't
have to try when it's that God-given.
That's exactly right. Zach, you had mentioned that you think the Colts have some regret over the way they handled Richardson. Do you just simply mean in handing him the keys too early?
Yeah, and those are not my opinions. Those are facts. That's what Chris Ballard told me explicitly in its stated article. He said, look, he just didn't have the understanding professionally of how to play and then how to prepare. It's black and white. They rushed him out there too quickly. And look, it's easy to fall for the trappings of talent, right? Like Jim Irsay was one of the people in the building saying he needs to play. And I understand the argument at the time, right? He hadn't played very much in college. He needed to play. And I'm not trying to plug this story again, but I'm working on a big quarterback story about the bad habits you can develop if you play too soon. And Alex Smith was unbelievable in my conversations with him. And he says the thing I look for is footwork. Like you could see it last season with Caleb Williams. He was being sped up. His feet were a mess. He was indecisive. And then he would just miss easy checkdowns. And how many easy checkdowns has Anthony Richardson missed? That's one of the first things that Anthony Richardson mentioned to me when we asked him like what he was working on was his base, was his feet. And I know this is boring technical quarterback stuff, but I find it fascinating. He said, look, like if I get my base nice and wide, then I know where the ball is going to go. I have more control over the ball. And he says, if I don't, if my feet are narrow, I miss. And everybody out there listening knows what he means by miss because he misses high. That's his miss. It's been way too frequent a couple of years into his career. And, you know, those are the little things. So if you're out to camp and you see the quarterbacks warming up on the side, you will see Anthony Richardson repping his base, trying to widen his stance. But again, you know, another thing I talked to Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator, about is, like, can a quarterback develop touch? So many quarterbacks over the years just had it, right? You can practice. But the thing is that he said that was really fascinating was a lot of guys will get through high school and college and get a lot of attention and win a lot of games because of their arm strength, right? Richardson's part of that, right? He can run all over the field. We know that. He can throw it a mile. We know that. But you get to this league and the windows are smaller and you need to touch, right? You need those intermediate throws. You need to hit those short throws, the layups, for lack of a better phrase. And that's where he's got to get better at. So that's going to come down to fundamentals. And everything we've seen so far, I mean, his on-target percentage last year was 58%. 58 was by far the lowest in the league. I mean, Jones is usually at 70%. 1 year with the Giants, he was at 81. So that's the gap I was talking about. He's trying to narrow, you know, he's trying to simplify things, widen his base to get better at those types of throws. But that's going to be the difference in this when we watch the preseason games.
Zach, since you have left, Zach Kiefer is our guest with The Athletic. You were, you know, obviously a Colts feature and beat writer during your time here at both the Indy Star and then The Athletic. And you were esoteric to Indianapolis, to the Colts. You now are an NFL writer where you are going around and doing features, whether it be on a player or a particular team or a camp. You know, I know you've done it in Miami. You're now in Washington. So when you look around at different franchises, and I know I've asked you this before, but it's worth revisiting because you've got another year under your belt of looking at the league in a much bigger lens. When you do that, it has illuminated to you the areas where the Colts are different than other franchises where?
It's much more of a family business, right? Like that jumps out at me. And I don't just say that because of recent events, but the Colts are an Irsay family business, and you feel that, and it feels small in a good way, if that makes sense. It feels like their little pocket of the training camp world at that farm up in Westfield. And I bounced around to, 15 or 20 training camps over the last couple of years, and all of them are sort of their own adventure, right, in terms of getting there and parking and getting through the fans and getting to the media area and watching practice. All of that kind of runs right parallel, right? They're all kind of the same. But the Colts stock is refreshing, not because I know a lot of people, but because it is the Colts kind of way. It feels smaller, it feels simpler, it feels unnecessarily complicated. And I kind of appreciate that more now that I've ventured out. I cannot tell you how good of a Colts, like how good the setup the Colts had at training camp for the fans, for the media, for everybody. It is just such a seamless operation. That is not to be overlooked. And then again, you know, like there are times when I bounce around the league and go to a bunch of stadiums and come back to Lucas Oil. I'm like, this is just an absolutely gorgeous stadium. And I hope I didn't take for granted going there every Sunday for however many years. But it's little things, it's players, it's the fact that the Colts are more accountable. And by that, I mean, Chris Ballard comes out and says, I screwed it up. That's not something you hear in every city. And he has to a degree. Jim Irsay, when he was alive, would come out and own it. And he would talk to the fans. You always knew where he stood. You always knew where he stood, right or wrong. And you never questioned whether he was in this to win. Like some owners are just kind of in this for the paychecks. Jim Irsay desperately wanted to win. And so there's little things like that I got accustomed to covering the Colts that are not the same when you bounce around and venture across the league. And I do appreciate those things more now in my spot that I'm currently at.
What franchise did you gain a lot of respect for? not named Indianapolis for maybe some of the same reasons?
Good question. Detroit is my answer. And I went there last year. It's been a week when they were a couple of weeks away from the playoffs. And you know how you just go through a locker room? I always felt like the locker room was the one place that teams can't lie. It's the one place where the PR BS won't sip through, right? Like, I can go talk to players. I can ask them questions. I can talk to coaches. And at the podium, you can hear one thing and it's whatever. But like when you go to a locker room, like the locker room's real. And I walked out of there after a week and I felt like I got it. Like I get why they believe in Dan Campbell. He might be cheesy at the podium, but they freaking love that guy. And the players showed me why. They told me stories that made me understand that. And it was really cool because not that long ago, they were an absolute dumpster fire. And they did it the right way. And they did it when nobody believed they could do it. And there was no shortcut and there was no secret and there was no huge free agent signing that changed everything. I mean, they traded for Jared Goff and everyone thought he was going to last a year and a half and be run out of town. And they became one of the best teams in the league. And kind of seeing how they did it and talking to all their players was like, this is literally the coolest thing about football, was being in that locker room and understanding why they did it. And then conversely, you know, last year, James Boyd, my colleague, and I wrote a story about why the Colts were falling apart again. And it was a very, very different locker room. There was a lot of players that didn't believe in the direction of the team, that were questioning some of the decisions that were made, and that were tired of losing. And the quote that we got from an anonymous player literally said, if you look around the league at the teams that win, like the Chiefs and the Lions, you can see why they win. So it's not that difficult to tell why some teams win and why some teams don't.
Do you think the Colts, those same players last year that said, and I'm paraphrasing, this is a franchise with no direction, do you believe that they now feel that direction is there?
Well, it's July 31st, Jake. Everybody believes they're in the right direction. Look around the league. Every single quote you're going to read is a player's in the best shape of his life. The coach believes in everything.
Guys are flying around making plays, right?
I just tune it out. But to answer your question, everything's going to come down to the quarterback. This is a good roster. It's a pretty good team. They could win the division. Not a great division. They could absolutely win the division. It's going to come down to if they get consistent quarterback play. And I am still dubious on that front.
Okay, so with that, and I know we got to let you run here in a minute, Zach, but when you talk about exactly that, the Colts, in your opinion, the Colts' ceiling is what? Even if they're to win the division, their ceiling is what record and like what slot? Like let's say a year from now they're drafting where?
Yeah, I mean, like if everything goes right, they're still like the sixth best team in the conference, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, I just can't. Like,
such a hard rut to get out of, right?
Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, Denver has a really, really good defense, and they have the guy at quarterback. And when you don't have the guy at quarterback, there's a ceiling, and there's a ceiling with Daniel Jones, and that's why the Giants decided to move on from him. And I think that's the tantalizing thing for the fan base right now, right? Like, where does the fan base want this quarterback competition to go, right? They are desperate for Anthony Richardson to figure it out because his ceiling is so much higher. I don't know if that happens. I don't know if it happens in a year. But with Daniel Jones, I think that's a guy that coaches trust a little bit more. I mean, the Colts were not a bad team last year. They went 8-9. And if they wouldn't have turned the ball over so many times, and Richardson was a part of a lot of that, they probably win a couple of more of those games, and they're probably playing in a playoff game. So it just depends on what they want. But, you know, the options are there. Now is the time to dream, right? Because it's August and nothing has, you know, no one's lost a game yet. But I just can't see them leapfrogging any teams in the AFC that are really, really good, with the exception of maybe Houston. Like, I think they could sneak past Houston. But again, I need to see real consistent quarterback play.
Zach, I hate saying this, but I'll say it again. I've said it on the show. They can win the division, you are correct, but the AFC South is the junk drawer of divisions, right? It's the division you open it up and there's like a roll of Scotch tape that's been there forever, you know, a bottle opener, a cassette tape you forgot about, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Jake, does that matter to them? You know, like,
of course
they'll take it and run with it because they've never done it under this GM.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Zach, we'll let you get. Now, you said Ashburn, Virginia. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Heading to Tampa soon.
Well, enjoy Tampa. It'll be like it was here yesterday, and then it'll be 65 the next day. All right, Zach, appreciate it as always. Zach Kiefer from The Athletic.
You're the best. Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate it. Zach Kiefer joining us on the program. You know, he mentioned Jared Goff. I think a fascinating documentary or article can be done about Jared Goff. I have the utmost respect. I don't know anything about Jared Goff other than this. Think about this. Just think about this. He was the number one selection in the NFL draft. He was born and raised, to my knowledge, in California. He played collegiately in California. He gets drafted by the Rams in Los Angeles. He's living that LA life, baby. He's got a girlfriend that's a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model. He's the quarterback of the Rams. They go to the Super Bowl. So not only is his name in lights, but his name is also in the starting aspect of the Super Bowl. And he goes into that Super Bowl, and he looks like he's never seen a defense before. And he has a terrible game. And that happens. Tony Eason started a Super Bowl and didn't complete a pass. It happens, right? Peyton Manning started a Super Bowl and had the opening snap go 9 feet over his head, and then an avalanche came. It happens. It happens to the best of the best and the most mediocre of the most mediocre. But after all that happened, Jared Goff, who was born and raised in California, played in L.A., played for the Rams, took him to the Super Bowl, all of it, gets traded to literally the Siberia of the NFL, the most lowly of franchises in the worst possible weather, and a place that has been literally the laughingstock of the NFL, and in a city that is struggling itself to find its old identity. And a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of players in that situation in any sport would have folded up tent and been like, I'm good. And they were terrible when he got there. Terrible. And that dude had two choices: to get busy living or get busy dying. And he chose the positive route, and look where they are. And will they go to the Super Bowl? I don't know. Will they win a Super Bowl? I don't know. But I know that the Lions are on the right track. They've been, last year was a heartbreak for them, but their offense is outstanding. And, they are now one of the top teams in the league. And I got to give that guy, I'm happy for the dude. I don't know him at all. And when I saw the video of his girlfriend celebrating their first win after like 12 straight losses in Detroit, and she was doing a swimsuit model photo shoot on some island somewhere, and they showed her jumping up and down, I was like, okay, so maybe I shouldn't feel totally sorry for him. But I'm impressed with it. I just think it's a great story, and I think it's one that if they do go to the Super Bowl, you've got to be happy about it. And I just said, get busy living. Speaking of live, that is actually coming to Indianapolis. I'm talking about professional golf, and one that obviously from the time that it began was, there was a level of polarization, one of the words I use a lot, but some of the big names in golf are going to be here. They're going to be here up in Westfield. And we will talk to one of the great golf personalities who has been an analyst for Live Golf, and we'll do it next. I will admit to the fact that when it comes to live golf, I'm pretty naive about it, and I don't think that. You tell me, Eddie, is that irresponsible of me, or do you think – I mean, obviously I know golf and I know about the – what's fascinating is that when Live was first announced, there was this, a lot of question about it, and then there was the discussion that it was all going to unify in general. And what I do know is that Live Golf is going to be here in Westfield, as a matter of fact, Chatham Hills, coming up on August 15th through the 17th. And you have a team aspect to it. You have like individual championship aspect to it. There is a lot that goes into it. And David Faraday, who is, of course, one of the synonymous personalities with the game of golf and in media coverage of it in particular, joins us now on the guest line to talk about exactly that, August 15th through 17th here in Central Indiana. David, it's a pleasure. How are you?
I'm fine, Jake. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to begin with this, and I will say this with almost apologetically, okay? And that is that, obviously I know of, and I was just mentioning, with Live Golf and from the time of its inception to now, the evolution of it, and in particular, there was so much that was made about the golfers that went over to it at that time. Then there was the discussion that it was all going to unify, and the differing aspects of it from the typical and traditional PGA Tour. So can you explain to me, and I apologize for it that way, but just kind of get me up to speed on everything that's going to be taking place out at Chatham Hills?
Well, first of all, I woke up this morning and the first thing that came to mind was a pork tenderloin sandwich. Why would that be?
Well, because you're coming to Indiana, or the State Fair starts tomorrow, one of those two?
Does it? Yeah, it's the one thing that I remember about it, But no, to answer your question, we're just a different product. It's a different league from the PGA Tour or the VP World Tour or anything that's ever been done. It was a dream of Greg Norman for many years, to make golf more global. And that's what we've done. And we've got this team aspect, where it's 4 scores to count over 3 rounds, which means that even if a player isn't, involved in the individual championship, which we'll crown our season-long individual champion in Indianapolis, his team score matters. So even if a player hasn't played well the first couple of days, he can still, and we've seen it over and over again, players that haven't played particularly well the first day or two, come in at the end and really make a difference in that team contest. So, that's the main difference, between your ordinary golf tournament and the Live Golf League is the team aspect to it, and the fact that we are only 3 rounds, we're quicker, we have a shotgun start, everybody's on the golf course at the same time, and it's just a different experience, Jake.
By the way, we can get you a pork tenderloin sandwich. A breaded tenderloin is the way to go if you're win in Rome, right, David? Win in Rome.
Absolutely. That's what I've been thinking of.
I like that. I like it. So, David, in terms of that championship, by the way, and I do know this, you're talking big names and big stars here, right? Because DeChambeau, John Rahm, Joaquin Niemann, I think those are those that are in contention for the championship, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We've got Joaquin Niemann, who has just played out of his mind this season. He's won 5 times. But he's had an extraordinary season in that whenever he hasn't played well, he's scored virtually no points. But any time he plays well, he just wins. And, we got John Rahm right there behind him, Bryson DeChambeau. They also have a mathematical chance. It's going to take something special from Rahm or DeChambeau to get past Joaquin Niemann this year, though, that's for sure.
Golf is such a fascinating game, David, because of the fact that it is, at least, and I'm talking about for the weekend warrior, right? These guys are the top of the game. I understand that. But for the average person, it is such a mental game. And you played it. I'm curious on a professional level, and in particular when you're going at this aspect where you're kind of allowed to reset, if you will, what is the mental aspect at this level of golf? Does it stay in guys' heads after a bad shot or a bad round like it does the guy that's playing, once every 3 weeks with his buddies?
Well, I think it was Marlene Dietrich said, all you need for a happy life is good health and a bad memory. And it really helps in golf to have, a short memory, after that bad shot or that bad hole, be able to put it behind you. And it's one of the things, that makes the game so addictive is even, the 18, 24 handicapper can go out there and hit a shot that John Rahm might hit, around the greens. Granted, he's not going to hit it so far off the tee, but, it's a game that everybody can play. There's the pro-am aspect to it as well, where you can actually play with the best players in the world. So it's a game that captures people. It's like a drug in that, you get one hit of it, whatever, and you can be hooked for life.
Yeah, I think and listen, I'm a terrible golfer, David, right? But even every once in a while, and I have not been golfing long, but every once in a while you get that shot where you're like, okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you think, why can't I do that all the time?
Right. And then I also have a shot where I think to myself, well, I need to go back to basketball, right?
Yeah, well, I'm at that stage myself now.
David Faraday is our guest, by the way. August 15th through the 17th, Live Golf will be at Chatham Hills in Westfield. It will crown a season champion. In addition to that, David, one of the things that I wanted you to touch on is I was looking at the schedule, and, I understand that golf is that game of focus, but there's a level of celebration it seemingly looks like with this as well, because I don't know that you often see concerts or, like concerts at golf events and that kind of thing. I mean, there's a wide array, is there not, of entertainment that kind of ties into all of it?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's we're going to have Riley Green on Friday, and then Jason Derulo, and I am not familiar with either of those guys, their music. I'm more of a Rachmaninoff and Chopin sort of a guy, but people hang around for the concert afterwards, and if you're into that kind of thing, it's just a different fan experience. We get local culture. The fan village has got plenty of things for kids to do. There's live music. And it's much more of a celebration of golf.
I got to ask you, David, while I have you here real quick. Anytime you venture into something new, it's out of your comfort zone. It's uncomfortable. It's a challenge. For a lot of people, golf would be exactly that, right? Maybe trying a pork tenderloin sandwich would be one of those. The most terrifying thing I've ever had to do in my life, I mentioned it earlier, was trying to drive a rental car in your home area, your home country of Ireland. Now, are you terrified when you drive in the U.S.?
Oh, no. I've been here 33 years.
Well, I know, but I mean, even still, right? Because it's a totally different feel, man. Like, I don't see how you ever get used to it.
Well, when I go back home, we've just been in England, and those narrow country lanes, I do what they do in Ireland. I just drive down the middle and try to avoid the sheep.
That's exactly right. And it's also the fact, because you're a naturalized citizen now, are you not? Or you're a nationalized citizen?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely,
I knew that. But, it's the fact of driving on the opposite. I don't mind driving on the other lane. It's sitting on the opposite side of the car. It's amazing how much that throws off your depth perception.
Yeah, especially if you're driving a manual.
Yeah, forget it.
Which a lot of the rental cars in the UK and Ireland still are.
Yeah, forget it. No chance. Absolutely no chance. Live Golf in particular, and the courses that you guys have seen now, and now going in to Chatham Hills and Westfield, is there any way to know, David, which golfer this particular course may favor? Or is, for the golfers that are on the Live Tour, has the style and or the courses that you've played forced some guys to tweak a little bit their style?
Well, this is a Pete Dye. In fact, I think it was maybe the last Pete Dye that he ever did. The only one that I'm really familiar with, and it would be Crooked Stick. I played the PGA Championship back there in '91. But Pete Dye golf courses suit anybody that hits the ball high. Depending on and I haven't seen Chatham Hills yet, but he didn't make any bad golf courses. He made a few weird ones, where you got a lot of railroad ties and difficult dog legs and things like that. So somebody who drives the ball well, like Bryson DeChambeau, for instance, who hits the ball not only 400 yards, but he can hit it straighter than most. It would suit him. It would suit any of the longer hitters. But then you get guys that are little technicians, like an Abe Answer, someone like that can sort of think his way around the golf course. It also suits them, a Pete Dye course. So, it's difficult to pick a winner.
Your highest PGA standings at the end of a PGA championship, if I'm not mistaken, you were within the top 10 in 91 at that PGA championship at Crooked Stick. I think that might have been your best PGA finish.
Yeah, it was. I think I finished sixth behind John Daly. Yeah.
Well, so Daly won it, and it's so fascinating because Daly, of course, was like an alternate at the time, and I realized for you, David, being a golfer, this probably was not the case. But I think I represent the majority of sports fans that literally probably not until like Saturday of that tournament had ever even heard of John Daly. What is your recollection when you look back on what was a magical weekend in Central Indiana for that 91 Crooked Stick PGA of just kind of the Daly phenomenon that unfolded before our very eyes? What was it like from a player's perspective?
It was amazing to watch, and I'd known John for a few years. The first time I played with him was down in Africa in 87, 88. And I was leading a tournament by a shot going into the last round, and I got drawn with this skinny, blonde-haired American kid, with a mullet. And I thought, who the hell is this guy? I've never heard of him. And I went out in 29 shots, and I'm still only a shot in front of him. I thought, why? And I hadn't seen him. He was either 100 yards in front of me, 100 yards left, or 100 yards right. And he ended up beating me by a shot. And he says to me at the prize giving, we're standing at the prize giving ceremony, he says, I'm going to have a party back at my room at the Santon Sun Hotel in Johannesburg. He said, would you like to come? And I looked at him and I thought, that's probably not a good idea. But I'm gonna go. Yeah. And I went, and we were awake for about 5 weeks after that. It was, I don't remember going to bed. I mean, he was unbelievable. And that, this is a guy who won 2 major championships. People forget that. He was a phenomenally talented player. And the best photograph I ever saw of John Daly was he was sitting on the steps of the clubhouse at St. Andrews, the Open Championship that he won, eating a McDonald's, with the wrapper sitting on the ground beside him with jeans poking out of the bottom of his rain pants. And I thought, well, that's my boy right there. He was a man of the people. He still is. People loved him. He was a generous soul, an incredible player. And, he's just so beautifully flawed that I think a lot of people identified with him because of that. I certainly did.
Man, that shot of him coming down, at 18 and it's so interesting, David. David Farady's our guest. We're talking about Live Golf. It's going to be coming up at Chatham Hills August 15th through the 17th. That shot of Daly as he's coming down the fairway on 19, and you can see that when it hits him and he realizes what's taking place and he starts pumping his fist, it truly was a magical moment. Now, obviously we know about, and you have been very open, and I commend it, about some of the things that you've overcome, some of the demons that you've battled throughout your life. So too has John Daly. As what I presume to be a friend of yours, have you had, and do you still have at times, concern for him?
Oh, absolutely. And those things that you talk about, addiction, depression, anxiety, those are things that I haven't overcome. I don't think, the people who live with those things never overcome them. You live with them, and you take your psych meds and you try to, live one day at a time. But I struggle with it. I don't have perfect attendance. And it's something that I deal with every day of my life, and I know Johnny does too. The demons that came to get him in the middle part of his career, how he survived that, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's not talked about often enough. The people in the public eye who do suffer from these things, need to talk about them more, because it's an epidemic in our country, in our children. We need to realize that.
What would you say, David, in conclusion to, the thing I think is important is we kind of never know who might be listening, right? We never know who might gain something.
Yes.
For the guy or the gal or the young person that happens to hear this interview, that here's a guy that was a professional golfer that's on TV, that works for Liv, and thinks, man, that guy's got the world at his fingertips. And here I am just trying to get my own lot in life, and I'm struggling. What would you say to that person that's struggling?
Well, when I first came to this country, it was 1993, and I was in the middle of a horrifying British tabloid divorce that was all over the newspapers, and at the depths of an undiagnosed depression, an alcoholic and a drug addict, and my game was heading south very quickly. I only played 2.5 years here of my 20-year career. The rest of it I spent around the world. But I met this girl from Mississippi, and she looked at me and said, yeah, I can fix that. Everybody needs to have someone in their life, someone that can take the place of drugs and alcohol, someone that can be there for you, and then the first thing you need to do is talk to them. You need to talk to somebody about this, recognize that it is a problem for you, and understand that it can be, something that you're able to deal with, and even turn to your own advantage. People made fun of me at school. The teachers made fun of me. I have a 9th grade education because, I dropped out. I was a classic, maybe on the verge of the spectrum, child with a learning disability, and I ended up making fun of myself as a self-defense, and I found I was much better at it than they were. and that sort of stood me in good stead all these years. I've done 10 years as a stand-up comic in places around the country in smaller theaters, until COVID kind of happened, and that sort of knocked that on the head. But, the very first thing you need to do is talk about it. And recognize, that you have a problem and there are people that will help you.
David, there was a television show in the late 70s with Valerie Bertinelli on it that fictionally took place in Indianapolis. The name of the show was One Day at a Time, and I guess that's a mantra that all of us can live by. And then when the one day comes along that is August the 15th, you know that you have 3 days of Live Golf at Chatham Hills up in Westfield, August 15th through the 17th. Great conversation, great stories, and certainly wish you the best in terms of your time in Indianapolis, your pursuit of a tenderloin sandwich, and good health to you.
Can't wait to get there. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Appreciate it. David Faraday joining us on the program. We'll come back. We'll put a tie on all of it. J&V will take the handoff as well next. Told you, man, every time I hear this song, I think of 1982. I was on the Giants, Allisonville Little League, and we won our Little League championship. And went to a pizza party, and this song, somebody had this song. They actually had a jukebox, and we played it. We each got to pick one song, and like all 12 of us picked Come On Eileen. And every time I hear it, I think about the Little League baseball party, the pizza party for winning the championship. I've mentioned before, by the way, Chicago's Pizza, 18 Central Indiana locations, 25 statewide. One of the things I love about it is when exactly that. You know, kids' parties or a family event, you want a place like that when you're doing a celebration that gets it and has that neighborhood, community, family feel, and that's what you get from Chicago's Pizza. And every single time I hear that song, I think of that, and I think about all the kids that are able to celebrate the exact same at any of their Central Indiana Chicago's Pizza locations because they get it. They just get that atmosphere because they are a family-owned business since 1979. JMV, I forgot, he is out at Colts camp because it is a night practice tonight, and I would assume that is still a go. The weather is less than it's funny. When I was out there, it was a blazing inferno, and now John's out there, and it's like the Pacific Northwest, right?
It's almost like San Diego, Jake.
Let me tell you something, Eddie. San Diego, 72 and sunny, 363 days a year. Have you ever been to San Diego?
I have.
Unbelievable, right?
Yes.
Do you know that, I believe this is correct.
I would love to go back. I've only been there once.
I believe what I'm about to say is correct.
Went to the Tom Cruise house from Top Gun.
Really?
Yeah.
San Diego is, am I correct in saying, the largest city in the United States without a professional sports championship, right?
Ooh, probably.
And if the Colts had not won a Super Bowl, Indianapolis was on deck if San Diego would have won one. But San Diego, I believe, still holds that claim. I'd love to see the Padres win one. Just be for Tony Gwynn.
The little brother of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Boy, they are that, man. And those fan bases, when I say they hate each other, like it's you do not want. I went to, now I don't know if you know this or not, Eddie, if I've mentioned this to you before. I know I mentioned it on the morning show. My buddy Jeff Hester and I went to a Padres-Dodgers game in 1996. It was the last homestand of the year for the Padres. They had to win, I think, 2 out of 3 to win the NL West. They did exactly that. And while I was there, I participated in the largest, at that time, the largest participated by one group Macarena.
Really?
Yeah, they played this. They were like, they even had somebody come out and instruct how to do the Macarena. Then they played the song, and we all did the Macarena. And I don't think they gave like any prizes for us to make that claim, but nonetheless, we were able to claim it. We went to the world and participated in the world's largest Macarena. Okay, there we go. Now, hold on, I can do it. You ready? Okay, here we go. You ready? They see? That right there on the YouTube, like, did you see how things just spiked right there by me doing the Macarena? I got on the sexy Adidas long sleeve shirt, and then I did the Macarena right there. I got news for you. That's the sound of the viewership of this program. Female listeners now, 26, right? And we know that Shannon was listening earlier because she sent a tawdry text, right?
And we know that everyone's going to hate me later for playing this song because now it's going to be stuck in your head.
No question. Mo from Ohio said he just got walked 500 miles out of his head 2 weeks ago. Now you're firing this up, right? Okay, there you go. So J&V is up next. And I might stick around and have a chat with him here. Not that sound like I got to scold him on something. I don't, but I want to find out what it's like out at Colts camp. So we'll go out there to Grand Park in Westfield, and JMV will take things over, carry you home for the night practice for the Colts, and we will break down all of that. Again, reminder tomorrow, I will be at the Great Indiana State Fair, the Dairy Bar specifically. So if you are out and about for the opening day of one of the great traditions in Indiana, the State Fair, then certainly say hi. I look forward to it. I'll even try to hook you up with a key lime milkshake. How about that?
That's unfortunate.
Eddie's wearing his key lime shirt right now, just for that.
Very unfortunate. I will be stuck in studio.
Well, I'll bring you one.
But you know what?
It may melt.
I'll have to call off or do something and try to sneak out there when you're serving, whenever that is, so I can get one of these infamous Jake Query milkshakes.
Actually, I'm telling you, it's a Leaning Tower pizza, baby. Except for it's not pizza, it's ice cream. John's up next. Thank you for listening to Query and Company.